Okay, guys, 3 minutes at not 2 minutes now at 9:50. We will move on. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So would one or two brave souls unmute and describe that experience? Anybody?
I'm sorry, say that again.
So how about somebody here? Somebody want to just talk through what was that experience like? Oh, okay. So Mary Ann, you go first and then we'll have somebody here. What was that experience like?
For me, it was pretty hard. I have to say, like, I don't know, like I didn't have a lot to put on here. I mean, not that I, a couple big things, but nothing, like a lot of it seemed kind of frivolous. I'd really rather, I felt a little guilty, I have to say.
I get that.
So,
Anybody here? Brooke?
Well, like it was hard. Like once you kind of went through what you really want, it was kind of like there wasn't really. I couldn't think of other things that I would want. Like.
And how would you describe in like a category the things you want? Are they things related to
lifestyle? Like
lifestyle?
being able to, like, because a lot of things also get bucketed into the same thing. So it's like to be able to travel kind of at your will and without, like being able to go down and spend weekends with my brother in South Carolina or visit my dad at a moment's notice or go and visit my in-laws in Italy at a moment's notice or just take a girls trip. Like, so a lot of these things kind of fall into the same category, or to go to a concert and not have to think about like, sure, I'll spend $600 for a ticket, So it's kind of like and then, project wise, like redoing the house, redecorating, shopping without a thought. Like, I don't know, a lot of it just seemed, and then on the other front, like, charitable, it's just like, like those kind of felt like helping neighbors in need or, paying off somebody's mortgage or.
That would feel good to be able to do that, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, I'm sure most of you guys know about Maslow's hierarchy, right? So if you didn't have a place to live, you wouldn't be thinking about paying off someone else's mortgage, right? You've got to have shelter, and then you got to have food, and then you need to be able to get all the things you need. And then when you get to the fourth and fifth level of Maslow's hierarchy, that's when you're starting to think about things that are going to make you feel more fulfilled on a higher level. And for a lot of us, we've spent almost every waking moment, for some of people that was maybe after they left home, but for some people maybe their entire life, you've spent all your life developing those first three levels: food, shelter, and all the stuff you need. You need to be able to pay your electric bill, etc. So it's kind of normal that you haven't spent very much time developing that higher part in your brain. And you can, and that's why an exercise like this is a first step in that. And I want you guys to push yourself to continue to do that, because your example, maybe pay off someone's mortgage. Okay, I'll bet if I locked you in a room for a week and said, be really creative on if every one of your lifestyle needs were taken care of, then what would you do? You'd almost like put yourself through a college class about how you could make a bigger impact on the world. I'll bet that's when that stuff would start to be refined. Does that make sense? I think, Mary Ann, did you have your hand up? No. Okay. Somebody else here did. you want to talk about what the experience was like for you?
Oh, yeah, I raised my hand and I was gonna speak to pretty much what Brooke said, that yes.
If you can talk a little bit as loud as you can.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. No, I was just gonna say, pretty much what Brooke said, once you go through the main things, you know, that's what's important to you, pretty much like get out of debt, blah, 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 this, that, and the other, and you really start to try to think about other things, it's not as easy as you would think it is. And then again, too, then it's just like things that are maybe important, but they're not as important. So that's how yeah.
So your brain kind of started with the important and then it went to the frivolous.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And given what we were talking about with, then there's the important and then the frivolous. If all that stuff were met, give me a category of where you think your brain might go next. Are the, in terms of, are there people in your life or things that,
Well,
world peace would be tough to have on there as number 99, but what
No,
might,
but just like when you kept giving us more time or whatever, so then you start thinking about, like other things that, maybe you would want to do, but in the beginning stages, that's not as important. So, yeah.
is there anything on there in that after the beginning stage that you'd feel comfortable sharing?
Oh, it's so much.
Give us a couple.
Okay, so, well, after I get a private jet.
A private jet, that's awesome.
Okay.
Do you need the jet or just the unlimited timeshare on a private jet?
No, I need
thing?
my own.
You need your own, okay.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. So then I could offer healthier foods for a lower cost in areas where they're needed.
I have the same one.
So you guys maybe need to partner up on this.
Like with group homes to do something with that.
Okay.
To get a staffing company, because what I was thinking about, like a lot of people, say people who have had, hard times, or people who've been in prison, women who, been in abusive relationships or anything, to have a staffing company to, like help people get their, resumes together and to get everything together so they can find a good job. Do something like a youth center, something to help children, and also to do something with the performing arts. And that ties with children as well, to give another outlet for, children to do things that they want to do. So those were the last things, but I mean, I have like so many.
So the 100 means nothing. I just wanted to push you guys past the first 2 layers. I don't care if you never have more than 44. If you did that stuff, how would you feel at the end of your days?
Oh, amazing.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Anybody else have anything on there that they felt good about once they pushed?
I put I want my own cook, my own nutritionist. I always want to fly first class.
All right.
I want my own yacht. But I also align with the other 2 ladies that to create a mentoring program for children with the arts and helping them to get into colleges and providing clothing. And there's a lot of struggling families out here that really need a lot of help, and it's just not here, or they don't know where to go. I also put to find balance, take a Hawaii, Disney, and African vacation.
Awesome. In 1 year.
Just get my family out of debt, not just me, but my family, and create a path of debt-free, freedom for my grandchildren and children, like a trust fund, like so they can just live and not worry about money.
The great grandkids, 529
Yeah.
college,
Yeah.
all done.
Legacy, just
How would that feel?
amazing that I can leave this world and I know that they're okay.
I love that. And anybody else in Zoom world want to chime in? All right.
Shannon,
Yes.
you said a couple of things that intrigued me. One is this whole exercise. I felt kind of narrow focused and trying to come up with a big want, you know? It's been so narrow in terms of getting through the making of the money and supplying the retirement fund and, you know, and you mentioned doing work in Guatemala, and that intrigued me for being something that satisfies your soul. If you could expand on that, what you do, either now or in private, I mean, that would be great. You know, I just had a hard time finding real big life goals. Mine were really focused and narrow on getting through the daily grind. And some of them were kind of selfish, but, you know, finding grand goals was tough for me.
So
You
I
know?
love that you said that. And I can promise you, you're not the only one. And I really think it goes back to the fact that we've all most of us by necessity have to spend 99% of your brain power getting the necessities done until you get to a certain point. And I promise you, there is a way in real estate, and it's going to be different for each of you. There is a way to use real estate to get you to that 4th and 5th level in Maslow. And it's not easy, and it's not gonna happen tomorrow. And for some of you, it's gonna look like this. And for others of you, it's gonna look like that. But that is uniquely each of your goals. I would say finding the path is second. The first thing is what we're working on right now, which is understanding your big why. And that exercise we just did right now is not actually our big why. We're going to just transition a little bit. But what I want you all to take out of here and think about I want you to try to just believe me that you can use this career within a couple of years to get yourself past needing to pay the electric bill. You need to believe that. And then you need to start thinking now, not then, but now, about what happens after that. Is it these investment properties that you want to buy because that'll fund the kids or the grandkids or the great grandkids college? Is it the nutrition programs for people that haven't had as much as you? Whatever it is, my story about going to Guatemala is fine. I'm happy to talk to you about it at some point, but it doesn't matter. There were things in my life between myself and my husband that intrigued us. And so that's the path we went. You guys' job is just to figure out what you want. I promise you, if you figure out what you want, you will find a way to get there. So let's just segue a little tiny bit. Who here has read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? Okay, a handful of you. Good book, yes? Okay. What I want you guys to do is, if you feel so inclined, is put that on your reading list if you haven't read it, and you should read the MREA first. But one of the things that I think is really powerful in that book is to begin with the end in mind. And I don't know about you guys, but you ever have the experience where you go to a funeral? Repeat the name of the book. It is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I see a couple of hands. Was that the hand up? If you have your hand up and you want something other than the book, just unmute and interrupt. You guys had the experience where you go to a funeral and people say really nice things, and it's not the fluffy nice thing. It's the fact that you didn't know that person you knew used to go every Thursday and do XYZ for someone else. And you didn't know that all the times their children speak to them, that they were always the person who did XYZ. No, all right, fine. People don't speak ill of the dead. So let's just assume people add a little fluff. But you guys all know what I'm talking about. You go to a funeral and you hear how many wonderful things someone has done. So not with a sad heart, but with a happy heart, I want you guys right now to write, whether it's bullet points or a paragraph or two, what it is that you want someone to say about you when it's your last day. What kind of a person do you want people to Epitize you. Is that a word?
Eulogize?
Eulogize. Okay, yes, to eulogize you. I'm like, that's not right. Okay, so. And this is like a workshop-y thing, guys. So take the time right now. I'm gonna give everybody a few minutes till I see some of you lifting your heads. But this is very, very important. You get to choose how to live your life to make sure that people are saying the things about you that you want. All right, everybody feel ready to move on a little? Okay. So I know Marianne had put in the chat that it was difficult. Anybody else have a reaction to doing this? How was the experience?
It kind of made me think about like, so after doing this list, it all seemed like, well, all of this is fleeting and like, but what's gonna be my legacy, which, you know, like I don't have kids and, you know, so I never really thought about, you know, and it wasn't really important to me. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, like if I have these resources, then I should do something that, you know, like for the good that carries on after my.
And did anything bubble up, or did it just illuminate the fact that maybe you're at a point in life to start mining in that area?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else talk about their experience?
Actually, I found this easier than the last exercise.
Really, everybody in the room is saying the same. I'm kind of surprised. Tell me about that.
Well, you know, part of one of the things that, you know, I find joy in, and, you know, is helping people, right? So that's why we do what we do. But I get the bonus of helping, you know, fellow agents as well on an almost daily basis. And I often get pretty immediate feedback on that. So it was easy to kind of write about that. And then finding that joy. I was on a listening appointment yesterday, and the guy was like, "You're always smiling." And I was like, "I love what I do." And I thought that was great. I didn't even realize I was smiling.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Put you on the spot and you can say no. Are you willing to write what you'd like us to say about you? Are you willing to read it, is what I meant, or no?
Sure.
Okay. Okay.
I'm always game for you, Shannon, right?
I know, you're so good.
All right. How I want to be remembered. Kind, patient, and giving. Found joy in helping others, whether it's clients, agents, or whomever. Knowledgeable in his career and talented as a designer and a musician. Raised money for a music charity and donated to KW Cares with every closing.
That's so nice. Who doesn't like Ron? Like Ron. Anybody else either want to talk through their experience or possibly even share? If you, and everyone's averting their eyes. I thought somebody else threw something in the chat. Natalia, was that you? You also said it was difficult? But Natalia, you're not shy. Why don't you tell us what you tell us what you wrote, Natalia? No. All right. Anybody else here? Anybody?
I don't want to write exactly what I wrote, but
Okay.
actually I can, but I try to be shy at least once in a while.
You're not shy. Stop it.
Okay.
All right, what do
So I believe that, we as a people had a very big impact on each other, right? And it's not about how you're going to remember, but how you make people feel in everyday life. So I would like people to say about me, and again, I'm not trying to be shy, but I am shy. She was a light and life of every room she entered. She made people feel good about themselves. She made them laugh. And most importantly, she made them believe that everything is possible. Everything for everyone. It's so hard to find a person who is capable to exuberate that kind of light, happiness, confidence, and a person who can make you immediately being contagious to that power. She make you feel lighter, and in her presence, everyday problem and burden was fading away. For some, instantly, for some, the more they get to know her and be in her present.
Very
I'm
nice.
still gonna meet her.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's all I want.
That's all I want. Is that too much to ask? You're already 80% of the way there, girlfriend. That's amazing. Thank you for being willing to share that with us. Anybody else? I'm not looking at anyone. Anybody here willing to share?
I mean, I was short.
Let's
but,
hear it.
I mean, this is what I hear, and I think this is what I do. That I was caring, helpful, and a good leader. That I did what I said. I always did what I said I would. That I was happy and a good person. That I was a great mother and lived my life to the fullest. And lastly, that my actions always spoke louder than my words.
I hear you out and about here, and you live that way. That's nice. All right, so the last thing we're going to do on this big why topic is marry these two concepts. For those of you that feel like, wait a minute, I had a hard time getting past lifestyle and frivol, I understand. But if you can continue to push yourself, that if you had all the freedom of time and purpose and money, and you wanted to live a life so that people would say about you what you want, if you could craft that into a sentence about what your big why is that's motivating you to make this real estate career serve your biggest life. Could everybody try to craft a sentence about their big why? And actually, it's hard. So go easy on yourself. But what you really want to do is think about what am I chasing, and how are we going to be able to figure out what you need to do in your real estate world so that while you're here, you can have all these things and more, and do all these things that you want to do and more, while living to what end, so that you've started with the end and you've lived a life that matched what you want people to say about you on your final days. Does that make sense? So try to write a sentence or two about your big why.
Give us like an example or if you're not,
Yeah.
other than.
Will anyone play? Hal, will you play? Will you play?
I guess I will, why?
What's your big why? Don't panic if you don't have it well crafted. Just
Yeah, 'cause I was actually working on my notes for what I'm gonna talk about in 5 minutes, so. I didn't
okay.
need to do that.
It's even
However,
better. No,
off
but
the
it's
top-
even better.
Off the top, what's my big why? My big why is to leave this planet, to create a pathway to leave this planet and have lifted other people up along the way. That's my big why. It's just to make an impact and to better other people's lives that I've come from.
That's perfect. It's a beautiful big why. And because I know you, I know that you know where you always are crafting what has to happen for that to be true. Just throw out a couple of examples. What has to happen for that to be true?
I need to create enough wealth to be able to care for the people that I love.
Okay.
I need to be able to continue to learn and develop and grow myself to keep sharpening the saw so that I can continue to help people around me.
Also quoting 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah,
That.
which is definitely a good read. And I need to surround myself with people who think bigger than I do. Because I do believe that you're the product of the people that you surround yourself with. And I think that it's easy to play small and surround yourself with people who will keep you safe, but not help you to grow who God put you on the planet to be.
Did I ask the right person?
Can you say that again so I can write it down?
I don't think so.
Harvey, just take a stab. Don't worry about what it is. No, but I want to, will you play? It helps people to do this. Don't worry, you don't have it. Say anything.
I mean, ultimately for me, it's taking care of my family and giving them, you know, a life free of financial concerns, while at the same time giving them a balanced perspective about the world around them. You know, too much money can create kids that are unappreciative of what they have and what's going on in the broader world around them. So something along those lines.
That's
Inarticulately said, but that's generally the concept.
generally the concept. Now, if you guys feel like you're not even quite there, what you want to do is ask yourself, and let me ask you, why is that important to you?
Because I want my kids and my family in general, my wife and my kids, to appreciate what they have while having an easier life.
Okay, keep playing. Why is that important to you?
Why is that important to me?
Because who are you that makes that important to you? You don't have to be that guy. You could be that guy that doesn't really give a poop about taking care of their wife, his wife and family and kids and whatever. So why is that important to you?
I don't have an answer for that.
That's fair. And somewhere in there, because even if you write what you already have, that's a really pretty darn good big why. But somewhere you're going to think of me in the middle of the night and you're going to go, oh, because there is more. You don't have to be that guy. You're choosing to be that guy. And I know how hard you work because you want to be that guy. And then maybe there's another level too. And if there's not, that's okay. But there's probably an answer to why is it important to me to be that person. And everybody's going to get, be on that journey. Look, it's probably not a secret. Hal used to be a therapist. I used to be a therapist. Allison used to be a therapist. So we ask people these questions for a living. And we've also done a heck of a lot of soul searching ourselves, because you can't be a therapist without being in therapy for a lot of years. So don't worry if you're not Hal yet, but hang out with Hal.
If you start to become like
Or hang out with Hal, because who you spend time with matters. So maybe it's 10:22. I want to give you guys a break before we shift to the next level. Before I do that, anybody oh yes, Natalia, you may. Natalia says, can she share her big why? We are ready.
Well, from what I heard in the beginning, that some people have a problem to write the first 100, because, we're all stuck and we're all prisoners of the everyday burden and most importantly, financial worries, right? So my big why is to obtain and make myself free. So if you become free and if you obtain this kind of freedom, you are capable of doing so many things. So I think get that freedom of everyday burden, and most importantly, everyday burden is financial. Open the door to, to everything. And I think if we will have that, if you would see us in a year and say, okay, you all guys reached that point. So now write your hundreds. It will be completely different. It will be flowing. Like somebody wants to write languages, somebody, learn languages. Somebody wants to, God forbid, open school. I mean, not God forbid, open schools or creating the gardens or doing anything. So I think the fact that we're also stuck in that prison of everyday worries make us lack of, and I want to obtain this freedom.
Natalia, I am so blown away by what you've shared today, because I think you're just exactly right. Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else in Zoom land or the real world here? Without sharing your big why, was this a helpful process? Anybody have any ahas? I promise I won't make you read it.
I'll read my big why.
Okay, let's hear it.
Probably sounds selfish, but it's a big thing to me, I guess. I want to be able to show myself that I succeeded and accomplished something on my own.
Will you play? Can you play? That's very good. Why is that important to you?
It's personal.
Yeah,
I
so
feel
you don't have to, but you
No,
can.
it's fine. I feel like before I started this real estate career, like everything I started, I couldn't finish. So now I'm really pushing through, trying to do that for myself. That's why.
Why is that important to you?
Oh,
That's where the answer is.
wait, hold on. I don't know. Why is that important to me?
Who cares if you finish? Try something else if you don't finish. Who cares?
Oh, it goes back to what I said in the beginning, to prove it to myself and my family and everyone around me.
So possibly, not to put words in your mouth because this might be wrong, possibly for you to really understand and appreciate and respect who you are, you need to demonstrate to yourself first and foremost that you can achieve your goals. And what those goals are will get more and more crystallized and formalized as you go. But at the end of the day, your success here is very core about who you are in your own mind and others. So I shouldn't put words, sorry.
No,
but
but that's the gist, yeah.
so how you feel about yourself is really dependent on this.
It starts from within, so it goes sprout.
I agree. All right, last call. Sharing or ahas? I won't make you share if you don't want. Any ahas?
I think I had an aha. This is Trish Modugno. Hi, Shannon.
Hi, I'm glad you joined us.
Thank you. A little bit under the weather, otherwise I would have been there. But my top 100, that was very interesting to me. I struggled, similar to what we've heard from a few agents. I kind of felt guilty on what I was writing down. I felt frivolous. And I'm like, I don't want more stuff. I have what I need. But then I started to write about all the people that I want to take care of and pay the mortgage of mom and my kids, set up college funds for my grandchildren, and the list went on and on. And buy a Mercedes-Benz for every child in the family, and crazy stuff. Take everyone on an Alaskan trip and safari to Africa and all this other stuff. But anyway, then on the big why, interesting, I think I had an aha, because it was all about creating enough wealth to help other people. So tied into my top 100, I guess. And I don't know why, and my husband always says that you want to take care of everyone, you want to take care of, and sometimes it's my downside because I run ragged, right? To try and take care of everyone, including the clients, with the same kind of passion and intensity, too intense. And, my why, because I think I was raised by a single mom. And I think I love the idea to be able to take care of other people the way that you know, without the struggles that I grew up with. So I think that's my why. But I'm not sure.
I think there's a lot of good stuff in there. Everybody's sort of chuckling in the room that, yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's ever a big why that's perfect and finished, but what you just said makes a lot of sense. And sure, we don't want you to run yourself ragged doing it, which is why we talk about things like leverage. But if you can live your life leaning into that urge to take care of other people while finding ways to make sure you're taking care of yourself and that you've leveraged it out and that you're working smarter, not harder, and all of that, I think you're going to just lean forward in life and find a way to make a big impact. And, you know, the fact that you're here and that you're doing this fourth quarter intensive is a great first start, because as we get your business plan formalized, we can build in leverage when and where appropriate. And that way we can make sure that your husband, who sounds like he loves you and doesn't want you to run yourself ragged, can help remind you that you don't have to run yourself ragged. Look, the biggest producer times 3 in our 3 market centers sells over $300 million of business a year. And she's not running herself ragged. She's spending several months a year at her lake house. So you don't have to run yourself ragged.
Sounds good.
All right, you guys, I'm so grateful. It's always a bit of a risk to push people internally out of their comfort zone a little in a place like this. So I hope everybody feels like they, you know, scratched a little bit open, but not too much. And I really encourage you to keep thinking about that and pretend that the bills are already all paid. And then what will you do? And it will motivate you to get there even faster. I can promise you. Hal, what do you want to do? You want to tell everybody to take 10 minutes?
Yeah, we'll take 10 minutes. And for those folks who are on Zoom, I've just put some handouts in chat. If they would, they don't need to worry about the Excel spreadsheet, but if they could take the other one and open that up and print that off. For folks in the room, I have handouts for you. Okay, take 10 minutes and we'll come back and we'll get on.
So it is, what time is it? So 10:30, so 10:40, we'll see everybody.
Guys, I'm gonna ask you guys on break if you would be so kind. One of the things that I'm gonna be working with here in the second half is an Excel spreadsheet calculator that I created last night that I will send to all of you so that you have your version of it. But I just need to know who's in the room. So if you just sign up and put your name and email address so I can get that calculator to you. Do you?
Oh, yes.
It's good. I keep mine with me all the time too. You never know what you're gonna do.
I'm looking at her orange.
They disappear.
Hal, they're all saying it won't open. What are you thinking?
Oh, I'm thinking a lot of stuff. I'm thinking I need to stop thinking about other people and start thinking about me and what I'm doing. I'm talking about everybody else. What people think about me, what people say about me, and I'm old and I no longer. I know what, if you don't like me.
What do you, as best as you know, what's your big why?
My big why is, you know what? I've always success, but never to the level that I wanted my success to be. So I'm always on the outside, never on that inner circle.
Close.
I need to be
Not quite there.
But it's yeah. I need to get up another level before I walk away, before I get interested in something else.
So when it gets hard, maybe sometimes you, but this time we're gonna push through it.
Yeah, that's it.
I think what Hal said is very true, and what you said, like, if people are annoying you or bringing you down or whatever, fine. Not just like, who cares? Go find someone else in your life, in this space that you can't do by yourself. Surround yourself with people that are doing, if you're here,
Right.
surround yourself with people that are doing this.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't even need to say anything about it.
Just get up in there.
Just get up in there. There's a lot There's a lot of negative talk around.
Not.
Yeah, and then I always.
He has like other people who are sort of like the day-to-day people managing. It's more than just a son. I didn't know his son was just there. I'd never met him.
And I have to realize the other thing is, they're already friends.
Yeah.
Especially with
I'm
I
gonna,
think
I'm gonna
he,
ask
I
you
talked
to
to him
use
in his,
to feel like
towards the end.
some of my best friends are with me because we have common interests.
But you're probably at a different level, so that's my
Not a
sense.
No, but I'm saying those are the friends who
Want to get to, I'm with
Yeah.
you, yes.
Because he
Yes.
is more so.
Don't forget, I'm still,
But I don't think.
No.
I mean,
I know.
I don't even want to say I'm
whatever
doing
that
it.
means, I still
I'm
think.
still learning. I'm
I'm still
still
learning,
learning.
but I also realize I'm too
So I don't think there's like, there might be certain.
My kid
Or
Friend
you're
kind
not
of thing, but.
Because you can.
you're right, you're right. I need to get there.
You know who's trust Lucy? Lucy.
Who's Lucy? Is that Lucy the coach? Lucy?
That's
Yeah.
Lucy's coach.
Oh, well,
That
Lucy,
is.
how?
You should get
Yeah,
t-shirts.
yeah.
But
I mean,
see,
yeah,
she's
but I'm starting
with it.
to be very careful. And that's the thing, I'm always like, and I have, and my mother used to always.
You should get people just to email you so that you're not having to
She's like. "Stop
Yeah, I'm
taking
gonna
care of
read people's
everybody."
handwriting.
That's why I love my person.
I may ask her to do that too.
It's just a copy.
I wrote on there and I was like, I don't know. Or it's just,
Would you like me to
I'm
go?
like, I don't know.
No,
You know what, I'll bet you, I'll bet you.
Right.
That's not bad.
I'm just like, this is it.
And
Great.
stop coming, I always feel like I'm being
Fair.
so
You got a lot.
I mean, you know, and.
If you want to do something tomorrow, I'll bet you $10.
Yeah.
Not every day, all the time, blah, 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 but we can get there.
I'm gonna sell this asset market, which you probably don't know about on November 30th.
Okay. I love it. I love that I don't know even because you got leverage.
Well, I need people, I know, so I'm hoping that, you know, I put it out on social media.
But I want you not to be upset with yourself if you don't get many because the real value is putting it in. No, putting it out there.
Putting it out there.
Doing it is great. That's
Right,
icing.
right, putting it out, and it's not, it'll be what it'll be, but
No
it'll be
one
good.
that's when you had something to market. to the world. They don't know what it is.
And you know what, that's the other thing, if no one comes on, I'm still gonna put your favorites, and I'll put it on my Facebook page.
Oh, well, that's almost better because you won't have anyone asking you annoying questions. You'll end up having a really good, and you can maybe also put it on YouTube. but-
There is, that's it.
It's a seller seminar, is that what you said?
Yes.
So fine, and then after that, if you feel like it, I want you to think about maybe also doing a buyer.
Oh, yeah. I'm
All right.
Thinking about that, but.
Okay.
Because that's what I'm good at. That's what I'm good at. I'm good at presenting. I am so good. Likable. Well, it depends on who you talk to. I'm good at being in front of people, and I know that. So I went, got some corn shots. Hey.
Here
Oh,
it hurts. So I've never had one, but I heard it hurts.
no,
No?
that's good too.
It's everything. Don't show me any of that.
No, this is back in the old days, back in the 70s. So
Six what?
back surgeries, right? I was born with severe case of scoliosis. Did you see the commercial with the little girl talking about her 69-degree curve? I had an 89-degree curve, and I was like one of the first 100 people or so to go on to have a scoliosis back in the 70s. The guy that invented the surgery did my surgery. So when I tell you, I got 3 rods, I got 3 cages, I got 62 or 67 screws. I can't remember.
You still have all those?
No, but you can't tell. I mean, it's all, it's, and when I tell you that, like, and that's where the other insecurity comes in from. I'm just like, when I look at this, like, female Frankenstein from the back, I want to take, I started to get tattoos with like the both.
I was never said that.
And it goes all the way up. So I am basically used T4 down to L3. So.
And look at how you move. I never
And
noticed.
you know what, I'm like this and I have to remove because people can tell my son like stuff, mom, stand up straight, you look like a victim. He's like, I don't want you to be victimized, you know, and I'm like this, stand up straight. you know what, excuse me, just kicking my butt, because I used to, I just like, you know, sit up straight, and now he's doing it to me, he's like, oh, like, these things are heavy. You know, I mean, it is that, I get you, but you know,
I would not
yeah,
have
when
a.
you got you on that.
No, I mean, you know,
Yeah, well, I tell you what, when you got Ann, it's interesting. So my first surgery was when I was in 12, so I was in body cast, but then from here, right down to the top. How did you do school? I did get my school in Europe. Yeah, and so my mother was very protective. Yada, yada, blah, blah, but a lot of things. You know, like feeling like you just like everybody was out like partying all day. You know, I'm at home like this, you know, so.
Hey Shannon, are you managing the?
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
I'm gonna take it out first.
I always thought about that.
And ready. A desire and they have a design, they're not even like ready to said like but if I haven't stayed on but I want no, you know.
Hello there.
How are you?
How are you? Here are you? Here are you.
No, like, I have to be, but I got 45.
Giving out $100 bills at noon, thanks being you.
I'm doing well, how are you?
Me too, but I'm gonna give, I got one handy. All right, don't,
We're good.
I know you are. But just.
Okay.
You never know.
You never know. You never know.
Okay.
No, it wasn't the people who come home because I was
I'm going to a,
that's a
1031 exchange.
that they are hoping.
Meeting tonight. Yeah. To make sure that we have the answers.
I'm doing one. Is somebody that just does a lot of them or
So I
what?
was reading to doing one.
Are you, did they make you co-host yet?
I'm looking to find out.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Okay.
I
lost your last name. I think Dana, let me text Dana and tell her, but you need to stand here where she won't know, 'cause you don't say how. I'll say, Dana, can you make, sorry, let me just.
Years and all that trickery.
Who's, don't you hate it when you get a text from something you don't know that says morning sunshine, hope you have a great day? How about like report junk? Do you report junk?
I love the random renter that called 2 weeks ago and texted me at 6:30 in the morning today.
I'm gonna turn you off here or?
Yeah,
I don't know.
so sorry. Are those my cords or anything? No. Did I?
Sure would have. Yeah.
Well, here, I can make you post, I think.
It is. Okay, you're welcome.
Even at home.
Do I change my name?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm kind of in town.
The dog sound when I left on the couch, you know, they're between, you know, cushions or whatever.
No, I was gonna say if they had children, you should invite them to the harvesting.
Yeah.
I invited a couple of my clients.
Have Dana do it.
Okay.
You know,
This is Saturday, right?
yeah, it's Saturday.
Perfect. That's
Nobody bites. Yeah, they don't have that. Just somebody looking to have a good time, you know what I'm saying?
I have these other investment clients. who's gonna invite
Yeah,
you.
on the 1031 thing, I always hear very different answers. People say, oh, my lawyer told me this, my lawyer told me that. I can't go to that thing, but I'd actually like to.
Well, yeah, I thought about like sending it around and I just got swamped. I didn't get to think about sending it wherever, whatever. So, no, there's definitely clear rules to it. And for us, it just didn't make sense because we wanted the flexibility of not having to identify a property in 45 days, because that's the biggest thing. You have to identify a property in 45 days. You don't have to close for 180 days.
Can you identify two so that if one falls apart, you can? Okay.
Yeah, but there are a lot of technicalities to it. And then some people, there's the Delaware statutory trust though that you can do. And then you're just doing the same things as syndication, just lumping it in with other people. But you gotta be confident in that. And you don't want to be like last minute.
And you gotta be confident who's guiding you, right?
Yeah. So that's why I wanted to go and kind of dive in.
Oh, with the setup.
Yeah, I'll fill you in.
All right, I would love that. Stop, go away.
Start setting up. I'll send you
Take it.
That's the email he's gonna be able to send the Excel document. By
Any of these
Yeah.
mine, no, those are yours, I'll get this anyway. Oh, something else there's mine.
Yeah.
She's saying she can't make it a co-host because she's only a co-host, so I told her to ask Katie. I think this is.
Well, it seems like I've shared the screen. Are you seeing the screen share of yours?
I don't need this, are you okay with that? Okay. So you are a host, maybe.
So what do you need?
Nothing, I just wanted to see if you were a host, but whatever.
Here.
I haven't seen something summer.
Yeah.
Oh, what, the list report?
I thought that conversation was actually pretty good because it became clear how many deals actually has happened.
Which conversation?
I'm sorry, the email thread last night with the boys.
Oh,
I know they all keep saying, yeah, what about Sync? What about Sync? What about Sync?
well, first of all, John, I could just shoot myself with it. If you say one more thing,
Oh, yeah, and I can shoot myself with Brian, because if you try to separate Sync one more time, we're paying for Up City out of our 37.
And by the way, Deanna, like we know, we talked about this in February. She texted you a lead and you blew it off because you don't have time. I go like this. These guys are so successful. I should be learning from them.
I know.
They're making a lot of
Yes.
money. And on the other hand, I go, do they expect us to just have everybody click the link and apply? Like they have to do no work? Is that how it is?
I agree.
But I go back and forth like, and oh
You,
my
well,
God,
last time I was getting aggravated and you actually changed the tone of the meeting by saying, first of all, we really want to know how much you guys appreciate, like, I was frustrated and I don't think I ever said thank you for that. And you did change the tone to where they then said, look, as long as we get these kind of.
And by the way, Brian has the guidance. You know this, and done deals, and like we've connected to it, like they're not our deals.
Right.
We're getting these deals. And by the way, Obsidian's been doing this for a couple of decades or whatever, years, right? So we're getting there. We had a listing, Jenny pulled it off. Marianne was writing 1 million+ content last week, pulled out. But we are, like, go by what you're saying.
But it was you that turned that meeting around, because I was getting hot under the collar.
Yeah.
And while John and Brian does me more crazy.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't hear.
Hey guys, can you guys hear me in Zoom land?
Yes.
All righty, that's good to hear. We're gonna get started shortly, I think. Hold on for a moment.
Big friend, she had a very quick deal. Right. That's awesome. But I don't know what to do because I'm like,
And there is David Wilson.
which is good.
He was John.
We got 2 leads. All these things yesterday that Arvin called because he hasn't been doing.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say, okay, good. I'm glad that it's good because I thought it was gonna be bad. Because I was I love it. But
Get 2 appointments.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. 10 meetings. He was in-
Oh, yeah, I saw that one. That was hilarious.
Yeah, filled out the box.
Right, right,
Happy
right.
Summit is John. And actually, oh, that was, it just has to be someone that's not already working with Matt. We're just with Fred, and he probably already works with Matt, right? I have a list. I'll see him at like 2 weeks ago. I was going down. Carlos Gomez is in now. And we have to 2 other people.
What time did we say we started?
10:40. 40.
40? Oh, okay.
Bye.
All right.
Thanks, Tom.
Guys, can you hear me?
Bye, Shannon, thank you.
Bye, Shannon. Let's give it up for Shannon. All right, Zoomland, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
That sounds like a yes, a little bit. All right, I thought we were starting at 10:50. We're starting at 10:40, so I'm late. Sorry about that, but we're gonna get rolling here. And one of the things that I'm gonna tell you is I have more of a PowerPoint presentation today to go through. So I'll do my best to speak to both you guys in the room as well as you guys in Zoom land. And if at some point the PowerPoint does not keep pace, there's been a little wonkiness with Zoom lately for me where I change slides and it's changing on my screen, but it's not changing on Zoom. And so you're like 2 or 3 slides behind. If it appears like that's happening.
How are you?
Here, but let me know and we'll kind of get that current. And in order to try to prevent real crazy feedback in the space, I'm going to probably mute Zoom land. And if you guys have questions or input, please just raise your hand or put something in chat and I'll get to you. Okay. Because otherwise I'm concerned that we're going to have a little weird feedback in the room. How was the first part of this morning? What do you think?
Excellent.
Pretty good stuff, huh? And, you know, here's the thing. I'm opening up the second half with a quote from Mr. Gary Keller. Don't let small thinking cut your life down to size. Think big, aim high, act bold, and see just how big you can blow up your life. I've been around Keller Williams for 12 years, I think, something like that, 12 years. And I will confess that for the first few years, a lot of this just sounded like Charlie Brown's teacher, you know, the wah, 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 wah. You heard the words, but they didn't seem to resonate. And I've been blessed. I've been fortunate. I've been around a lot of different Keller Williams franchise offices. I've been in some of the top 25 offices in various different capacities, which makes me wonder if I can't hold a job. I'm a little concerned about that. But the thing that I will tell you is I've never seen any Keller Williams franchise anywhere that I've had the association with who's as focused on this as this group is, and helping people to really legitimately create a big life and to dream big and to really stretch and lean in. And so I'm really excited that we can sort of share this with you. I'm excited that we pivoted a little bit from bold. As much as I believe in bold, and I do, we will bring bold back. I think the election to kind of pivot and go into this model was the right one for us, right? And I'm glad you guys are all here. So one of the things that you see on the top of the screen, and I'm going to try to close this out. You guys in Zoom land, I'm going to have to move you a little bit here. You're moved on my screen. You're not moved here. So I'm not sure exactly what's causing that. We'll get to it. Gary talks a lot about following the models, right? Now, some of you may know the background and the history. Gary has been influenced by a lot of different people in the world. And one of the people that had the biggest impact on Gary's life was a guy by the name of Tony Robbins. Some of you may know of Tony Robbins, right? And one of the things that Tony says all the time is if you want to live a big life, find what people are doing who are achieving the things that you want and copy them, right? Every great business has an R&D department, and it doesn't stand for research and development. It stands for rip off and duplicate. That's what R&D is. And Gary's a big believer that, look, people have lived before us. There's no reason to kind of go out and reinvent the wheel. That said, when you're copying someone else, the goal isn't to try for you to become that person. It's for you to kind of do things the way that they do those things. And the MREA, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, which I will tell you, for me, was a game changer, right? When I got into real estate, I'm going to tell you, it wasn't effortless for me. I was the guy who came out of a big, heavy duty corporate job. And here's what I believed. I truly believe that if you show up and you clean up and you try to look good and you kind of smell good, that somehow or other, the business is just going to come and find you, right? Anybody ever fall into that delusion besides myself? I see some people in the room. How about you guys in Zoom land? Anybody fall into that delusion? And newsflash, didn't really happen, did it? So here I am, about 10 months into my real estate career, having closed one transaction. And my wife, who is very patient, maybe the first Presbyterian woman canonized a saint, we'll see how that plays out, was very patient, you know, and she said to me, after months and months and months of not bringing in any money, after walking away from probably one of the most prestigious healthcare jobs in the state of New Jersey, said to me, you might want to get like a paper route or something. These guys in here are laughing. That didn't feel good. That did not feel good. If Uber was a thing, she'd have had me driving early on. But here's the thing. The problem was I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't have models to follow. I was taught in my brokerage, here's how you host an open house. Here's how you fill out the form. Here's how you don't get sued, all that stuff. I learned how to manage the transaction. What I didn't learn how to do was to create an entrepreneurial business. And it was 2004. And I just happened to walk into a Barnes and Noble, and it was in Clark, New Jersey. I picked up this red book on the shelf that said A Millionaire Real Estate Agent. I said, that looks like a pretty good read. And I picked it up and I opened it up. And suddenly I'm like, here's the blueprint. Here's the roadmap, right? What I was missing was a guide in terms of how do you follow the models of success is ripping off and duplicate. What am I trying to model after? And suddenly it started to make sense. And I was fortunate. I went from one transaction in 10 months, drop a pin in that moment, and go out the next 12 months where I closed $12.5 million in sale volume, became Rookie of the Year for the company that I worked for. And it wasn't because I was smart. It was because I had a plan. And that's what we want to share with you here, right? What are the models? What are the plans? Again, I have Zoomland on mute. If you have questions, don't hesitate to raise your hand, put it in chat. I'll do my best to follow. Here are the MRE models, and I'm changing slides in the room. Someone in Zoomland just confirmed that the slides are changing. All right, thank you, Ron. Appreciate your thumbs up there. I'm going to close the screen here. So here's the four models. We're not going to go deep into all of them today. We're only going to touch on the one, but the four models are the economic model, the lead generation model, the budget model, the organization model. I'm just going to give you a quick brief today on what they are. And we're going to go deep today in the economic model. The economic model is the scoreboard. The economic model is the guide that we have to figure out, how are we winning? Are we winning or are we losing? You know, I happen to be a very devout Yankee fan. Last night was a rough night. The night before is a much better night. But here's the thing. Imagine any sport that you're watching, baseball, soccer, whatever it is. Imagine what that sport would be like if nobody kept score. Now, I can tell you something. I was a caddy as a kid. And you know what golfers do when you're not really paying attention and you're not keeping score? I heard people say it. They don't always play by the rules, and they don't always succeed. They don't focus the same way. When it's a tournament time, they're really focused on their swing and they're really focused on their putting. But when they're not keeping score, the economic model is, how do you keep score in your business so that you know where you are and what you need to do to win the game? The economic model we're going to get into in depth today, it focuses on time. How much time do I have left in the game? Because you play differently, don't you? When you're behind and it's in the first quarter of the game, you play differently than when you're behind and it's the fourth quarter of the game, right? And so the economic model, which we're going to go deep into today, starts to help us figure out what are we tracking? How do we measure? How do we know when we're winning? How do we know when we're losing? What are the feedback that we're getting that teaches us what to do to make adjustments, right? I see some people who are in the waiting room. It looks like I am also the co-host. So I'm going to let those folks in right now. Then we have the lead generation model. And What the lead generation model tells us is this: if the economic model tells us what are we aiming for, the lead generation model tells us how big a database, how big a community do we need to engage so that we can generate the volume of business that we want to generate. And the lead generation model starts to spell that out. How big a database do I need? How frequently do I need to engage it? What is the way that I need to engage it so that I stay top of mind, so that when people need the services that I provide, they think of me, right? And the truth of the matter is, there are formulas that we know. We have studied this for years and years and years and years. The MREA, by the way, just so that you know, these models, this isn't just Gary and Dave Jenks back in the day and Jay Papasan sort of sitting there and spitballing, let's think about all the things that we've learned in our career. This is what they did. They went out and they actually studied 85% of the top agents in the world and asked them, how do you think about budgeting? How do you think about the economic? How do you think about lead generation? How do you think about leverage? What do you do? And they put that all together. And the truth of the matter is, and Gary will tell you, there is no agent anywhere in the country who did any of this, all of this together. Some people did the economic part of it really well. Some people did the lead generation part really well. Some people had the budget model really well. This is kind of a Frankenstein's monster, all stitched together of what it could look like if you had it all working together. But the lead generation model helps us think about how big a database, a community of influence do we need to create? How are we going to grow it? And then how do we engage it? The budget model teaches us how do we make sure that our business is profitable? Because what is the purpose of business, guys? Anybody in the room or anybody in Zoom land, what is the purpose of business? The purpose, I heard a couple different ways. The purpose of business is to fund your life, is what I heard in the room. And newsflash, you can only fund your life with profit. The purpose of business is to generate a profit so that you can fund your life. If you're not generating profit, you are not running a successful business. And here's one of the things that I learned in my life. And Shannon told you, I spent a whole lot of time as a therapist. And I frankly had a private practice, a specialty practice that was a medical family therapy practice. I tended to work with the terminally ill. And here's what I learned. I never once found anybody at the end of their journey looking back and saying, I wish I spent more time at work. I never once found anybody at the end of their journey looking back and saying, I wish I played safer. What I found people saying was, I wish I had the courage to take the risk, to take the chance at the time that it presented to me. I wish I spent more time with the people that mattered and not getting so caught up in shit that didn't matter at all. And I wish that I created enough financial stability and wealth in my life to make an impact in the world. The budget model teaches us how do we make sure our business is profitable. And here's what I'm going to tell you. If your business isn't profitable, stop and do not pay $200. Go back to go and figure out, what do I need to do? How do I need to change that? And there's all kinds of formulas. We can go deep in the budget model at another time in terms of how much money should I be allocating for this expense or that expense. But the budget model gives us some roadblocks. It doesn't say you should spend this amount for this budget category. It says don't spend more than this amount in this budget category. And if you can run leaner, because then you're more profitable. And then the organizational model teaches us about leverage. Because here's the thing, there's only so much that we can do by ourselves. And when we get to the point that we're doing all that we can do or all that we choose to do, and I know plenty of folks who say, I could do more, I could work harder, and yet my priority is to make sure that I don't miss my daughter's soccer games and that I get to spend Sunday supper with my family or whatever it is. That's a choice and a perfectly good choice. We spent the whole first part of today trying to dream about what do we want our life to be. And it includes those things, right? The organizational model starts to think about how do we create the right leverage so that we can do more with the time that we've got. And for a solo agent, we spend a lot of time thinking about leverage in terms of things like having really great systems. so they don't have to rethink everything every time, that I have a set way of doing things and it's really efficient. Have you ever been to McDonald's? Sidebar question. How many people? I try not to go there. I think I've probably been 10 years now that I haven't been in a McDonald's. But here's the thing. One of the things about McDonald's, it is the most efficient system you'll ever see. They have got it figured out in terms of everything. How many pickle chips to put on the patty, how much ketchup to squirt on the patty, what part of the grill top should you put? There was a study that they had done that determined if they placed the hamburgers on a specific part of the grill top, because the vast majority of their grill flippers were right-handed, if they put it in this corner of the grill top, they could flip more efficiently than that part of the grill top. They have got everything figured out. And it makes things super easy and super efficient. You don't have to think about it. It just goes. And that's why you get the same crappy hamburger anywhere in the world. You go in there, it's the same lousy hamburger, but it's consistently the same lousy hamburger. And that's systems. I don't want you to create lousy business, but you get what I'm getting at, right? Technology creates leverage. What can I automate? Right? And then as we grow our business, at some point, we have to think about people leverage, right? What do I need to delegate? And who do I need to delegate it to? Right. And what we know is that the mistake that so many agents make in the organizational stage of their business is the first thing that they look for is a buyer's assistant. When in fact, the first thing they probably should be delegating is all of that stuff, all of that administrative crap that takes up so much of your time and takes you away from the things that you need to do. The first piece of organizational leverage should be an administrative assistant to free you up to do more of the things that you do so well. But the organization model gets deep into all of that. And so these MRE models all sort of come together and help guide us in terms of how do we think about running a business? And it starts with the economic model. The economic model encapsulates kind of elements of all of it. And when we think about the economic model, one of the things that Gary Keller says, and I might have another slide buried in here somewhere. I was just adding slides a few moments ago when Shannon called me out and asked me to talk about a big why. I'm like, wait, what? I have to play? What? But Gary says the path is in the math. The path is in the math. And here's what I know about math. We don't like math. In addition to being a real estate broker, I'm also a real estate instructor. I get the blessings of sometimes teaching the pre-licensing course, the broker's course. And here's what I know. It's the math section that freaks everybody out. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And here's the truth. The math is not complicated. You don't need a slide rule. I don't think I'd know what to do with a slide rule. I always pretended like it was a little trombone when I was in school. But the path, the numbers are the scoreboard. It gives us the feedback. And the economic model, here's the thing. The economic model is kind of this overlay. And I don't know how to change this on the screen. If I can get this, maybe I can do it here. If I can get this to minimize.
That little line, you're talking about the sidebar there with everybody's.
Yeah, how do I get that to minimize?
That first bar.
You have to use a different mouse though. Your screen, that mouse actually.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's the, hold on for a second, guys. Stick with me.
Yeah, it's this mouse. Yeah, that's gonna be the mouse.
All right, hold on for a second. I'm gonna try to make this mouse work.
Yep,
Minimize
there you go.
that. All right, thank you, guys.
Yeah, perfect.
Teamwork makes the dream work. All right, so here's the thing. The overlay here in the economic model is about three things. It's about how do we invest our time and resources. Starts with the investment part. How do we perform? And it's this overlapping of how we use our time and resources and how those perform that creates this central section, which is our outcome. So let's start thinking quickly about the investments. We have basically two things that we can invest. We can invest our time and we can invest our money. In the growth phase of our business, what do we have more of? Time than money. And so we have to think about things that are prospecting based and time invested so that we can get the outcomes that we want. As our business grows and we've got more resources coming in, we generate more money. And then we get the opportunity to spend that money on leverage to buy back our time. And that's always this dance, right? As I have more money coming into my business, I can hire people to do the things that free me up and I trade my time for money. There's always this interplay between the two, right? But the investment of time, we're going to talk about cost of sales. what is the cost of sales? The cost of sales is a phrase that we use that starts to speak to what does it cost to be in business? And I'm not talking about operating expenses. Those are different. So guys, I'm going to ask for today, stick with me. There's a lot of phrases that we're going to talk about. I want you to understand these concepts, right? And we're going to get into a spreadsheet, and this is where I know I'm going to lose some of you, but hang tough. We're going to get into an Excel spreadsheet. We're going to do some calculations, and this is where people's eyes start to spin around and you go for a second cup of coffee. Stick with me. We're going to get through this, right? Cost of sales is how much does it cost to be in business? And I'll dissect those in another slide. The performance part of the business, what do I do? How well do I do it? What is my skill level? You know, I had an opportunity to hear a gentleman the other night who's a financial planner. Some of you were in the room, I think. It was our investment club got together, and we had a meeting. And Mark Murphy, who is one of the finest financial advisors in the country, said, if I only had $1 to invest, I would invest it in myself. I would invest it in my skills, in my capacity to grow and become better. The performance part of the economic model, we start to get feedback based on our conversion ratios, which we're going to talk about today, that starts to say, when I'm taking these actions, am I getting the result that I want? If not, what should I do differently? Those of you that have taken Ignite with me have heard me talk about gauges and levers, right? Thais is nodding her head. She might have heard me have this conversation yesterday, didn't you? Gauges and levers. We're driving our car, and we have in our car a whole instrument cluster of gauges. And one of those gauges is the speedometer. So if I'm driving down the road and I'm starting to merge into the highway and I want to go faster, is there anything I can do physically to manipulate the dial to make my car go faster? Yes. I can't manipulate the gauge. What do I have to do? I got to step on the gas. I've got to press a lever. And when I take that action, hopefully something happens. And if I step on the gas, if I step on that lever and the car speeds up, I'll see that reflected in the instrument cluster and the gauge, and I'm happy. If I step on the gas and nothing changes, then I've got to start to ask some questions, don't I? How come? Stepped on the gas, car's not going any faster. Did I forget to start the car? Did I leave it in neutral? Do I have the emergency brake on still? Did I forget to put gas in it? Like, I didn't get the outcome I expected. What should I do differently? That's the kind of feedback that we get from the economic model. And our skill level sometimes is displayed there. I'm taking these actions, but I'm not getting the outcome that I want. The question is, maybe it's a skill issue. Maybe I'm doing the right things. I'm just not good enough at it yet because I'm not practicing it enough. Or maybe it's a volume issue. Maybe I'm pretty good at it and it's the right thing to do. I just don't do enough of it. I'll give you an example. Maybe let's say that one of the things that my model called for is to have calls into my database. And I have, lead generation calls into my database. If I make 5 calls an hour into my database, will I have a different outcome than if I make 5 calls a year into my database? Of course I will, right? And the economic model starts to give us that kind of feedback to say, if I'm doing the right things in the right frequency and I'm not getting the results, then perhaps it's a skill issue. If I'm doing the things skillfully and I'm not getting the results, maybe it's the wrong thing. And it gives us feedback to change. So all of this comes together. And then finally, the performance part of this gets into resources. What kinds of leads am I working? How many appointments am I getting? What kinds of systems, what kinds of tools, how am I working efficiently? All of this comes together to generate the outcomes. Here is a visual model that you have in the handouts. And I'm going to talk through this a little bit. And then I've created an Excel calculator that replicates this, which we're going to use here in the room. And if you sign up on this sheet in the front of the room, I will email you your version of the Excel calculator. I tried to put it into the chat box. I don't know that everybody there has been able to open it. Stick with me and follow along, and you will get this calculator. But let's go through this template here. And stop me with questions if you have them in Zoomland, raise your hands or whatever. I'll do my best to try, or put it in chat so I can see it, right? The book is called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. It's not called The Agent Who Did Pretty Well. It's not called the agent who just barely paid the bills. And in fact, I heard Gary say one time that wasn't really his title initially. He didn't want to call it the millionaire real estate agent, but millionaire is a placeholder. If you put it out there as the millionaire real estate agent, it's certainly a catchier title. It sells more copies. It gets your attention, but it's a placeholder for what Shannon just spent the first hour talking about. What is this vision of the life that you want? And if you dream a little bit and you start to really believe that you can overcome all of a lifetime of programming, I'm going to go back to Tony Robbins for a minute. Tony Robbins will tell us that one of the biggest challenges that we have is overcoming a lifetime of programming that says this is what your life is going to be. And to stretch and to really believe that that's not what God created for you. God created an opportunity for, and I'm not going to get religious. This isn't a religious concept. It's how do you stretch and really believe that you're on this planet to achieve great things and to make a really big impact, right? And yet we get pulled back into this program that says no one in our family has ever done that. Nobody in our family has ever been that successful. It's not for you, it's for other people. Profit share is great. Look at all the people making profit share. That's for other people. That's not for me. Overcoming all of that programming so that you can put in this number, the number that it takes to fund the vision of the life that you truly believe that you want for yourself. And in this economic model, we're going to do two versions. We're going to have an economic model that says, this is what I'm aiming at. This is what I'm shooting for. This is what I want the scoreboard to look like. We're going to call that the pro forma. And then we're going to keep track of the real score on the field. And sometimes there's differences. Sometimes where I want to be is not where I am yet. And I will use the term yet. And what do we need to do differently to kind of make that happen? So the millionaire real estate agent says, what would you have to do to build a business that creates $1 million of profit? Pre-tax. I will say pre-tax. Because that's where it gets different for a lot of different people. Oh, and by the way, in real estate, when you learn how to invest in real estate, there's a whole lot of ways to offset some of that tax impact, right? There's a lot of ways, and Shannon just did a workshop not too long ago on syndications, right? She's general partnering syndication. One of the benefits of those kinds of investments when you have the capacity to do that is you get tons and tons of tax write-offs. What Gary Keller says is what we need to do a better job of in teaching wealth building to our agents is helping them understand that the pathway to a really big life is not going to be generated by the income you produce in your sales business. How many people have read Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Anybody know Robert Kiyosaki's name? You're gonna get a lot of books from Shannon and I. So put Robert Kiyosaki on your list. But one of the things he talks about in another book, I'll give you two books for Robert. One is the cash flow quadrant. And what Robert says in the cash flow quadrant is that if you took a piece of paper and you drew it into boxes, in the upper left box, in the upper left corner would be the box of being an employee. And when you're an employee, there will always be a lid on your income potential. Would you agree with that? The cash flow quadrant, Robert Kiyosaki. What are the limitations that limit what you can earn as an individual employee? What limits that for you? Your employer. How much they're willing to pay you. Now, look, if you can throw a 102-mile split finger fastball in Houston in a baseball game, you're going to have a pretty high ceiling. But if you really want to break free of those kinds of limitations, you have to move from the upper left quarter down into the lower left quarter, which is not being an employee, it's being self-employed. And when you're self-employed, what happens? You break some of those shackles, but there's still limits, aren't there? What limits how much money you can make as a self-employed person? The confines of time and space. How much can you do by yourself? If you really want to break through from that, you've got to move from the lower left quadrant up into the upper right quadrant, which is called being a business owner. And having other people with you and work together. And part of what we're trying to do in all of these models is teach you how to build a business, if that's what you choose to do. There's nothing wrong with staying in the self-employed box. Lots and lots of people build a wonderful, successful life in that quadrant. But building a business is where you kind of create the leverage to create real wealth. And what Gary tells us is we have to teach agents that the income that they generate in the real estate business becomes seed money to invest so that the wealth building can happen on the investment side. Because as you go from business owner, the box right below it is investor, right? And there's a path that we're trying to kind of help people along in terms of how do you think about this, right? But the millionaire net income of $1 million, that's the goal. Pre-tax, what would it take? You put in your own number there. And in a few moments, we're going to walk through an Excel spreadsheet calculator, which will do all the math for you guys, as long as you don't blow up the calculator. And by the way, when you get the calculator, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Take a copy of it and save it someplace on your hard drive. And then make another copy of it that you actually manipulate. Because as you start to put numbers in and delete numbers in, you're going to break the formulas that I put in there. Just go back and get the clean one, save that one. That's your rescue version, and go back and work with it again. Does that make sense? So here's the thing. The thing that we need to talk about, and I'll come back to, I'm going to jump around these slides. This is what your calculator is going to look like, by the way. We're going to get to it in a second. Here's the tenets of the economic model that you need to understand. We call it the 30, 30, 40. 30% of your gross commission income. And let's do some definitions here. When we're talking about gross commission income, we're talking about the income generated at the closing table before anybody puts their grubby little mitts on it. Before you share it with the broker, before you pay any of it to any kind of referral fees or whatever it is. Well, actually, referral fees we'll talk about in a minute. They come under cost of sales. But gross commission income is the total top of the line revenue that comes in, and businesses tend to think in terms of income revenue as gross commission income. When you take that number, 30% of it should be allocated to cover your operating expenses, 30%. And if you're a solo agent, I'm going to tell you that 30% is too much. We'll talk about why in a minute. It will really only be 15%. Because in this model, in this big millionaire model, you're running a team. You're not netting $1 million, guys, as a solo self-employed person. You're just not. Biggest commission check I ever saw in my life. I had an agent that sold a $18 million house when she was capped. That was a really big check up in Alpine, New Jersey. But you're still not netting $1 million on that check. Right. So the bottom line is when you're running a bigger team, part of your operating expenses includes paying people. I've got to pay buyer's agents. I've got to pay transaction coordinators. I've got all of this staff to help me do what I need to do. And that eats up part of this 30%. When you're a solo agent and you don't have all those people that you're paying, you get to keep more of the money because you're doing more of the work. We're back to that time versus money trade-off, right? And so I will say in the next slide, in the solo model, the operating expenses are really closer to 15%. And what we say is don't spend all the way up there, but don't pay more than 15% if you can avoid it, right? Try to keep all your operating expenses below 15%. The next definition I want to get to is called cost of sales. What is cost of sales? Cost of sales is what does it cost to be in business? What does it cost to be in relationship with my broker? This is where you pay the split. What does it cost to generate a lead? If I'm paying a referral fee to an agent who sent me a referral, I pay them 25% of the commission as a referral fee. That's a cost of sale. These are expenses that happen typically at the closing table. People that are paid at the closing table, right? Operating expenses, your marketing expenses, your rent, how much does it cost to run your car? How much does it cost to buy your signs, your lock boxes, your printing? All of that's operating expenses. Cost of sales are the expenses that you pay to your broker, to the referral sources that bring you business. And when you're running, to some extent, a team, cost of sales can also include some of the things that you're paying to your team, right? Covered in there. The bottom line is what we get to keep is about 40%. About 40 cents on every dollar. If we're running an efficient, lean business, we get to keep as profit pre-tax. And I hear sometimes people say, that's all I get. I mean, I got to give 60% of it away. All I get is 40%. That doesn't feel like enough. And here's what I'll tell you. I get it. I get it. But I will tell you, if you look at businesses in general, especially other businesses, I'll go back to McDonald's for a minute, right? Try to stay out of McDonald's. Don't advise that you go there. Not good for your health. But here's the thing. The margin that a McDonald's franchisor makes for every dollar worth of stuff that they sell, and I've come to learn it really doesn't matter what you order. You're going to get the wrong thing anyway. So I've increasingly started to say, but I see a thing in chat I'll get to in a second. I've increasingly learned that at McDonald's, I just say, just give me $10 worth of food, whatever you decide. Because whatever I order, you're going to screw it up anyway. So as long as you just give me $10 worth, I'll just call it a draw. But for every dollar at McDonald's, if the franchisor makes 6 or 7 cents, they're happy. Because there's so much overhead and expense in that system. But here's the difference. When you're a McDonald's franchisor, you can walk out into the parking lot and point to a sign that says billions and billions of people have been served. And when you're making 6 cents a dollar on billions and billions of people, it starts to turn into real money. The challenge for us is that we don't do the kind of volume typically that 40% profit feels like it's enough. It's a volume issue, right? I see some things in chat. Let me just sort of take a look at what's in chat real fast. 55% is a solo agent, right? That's where we're going to get to, Ron, in a second. Will we have access to these slides? Truth of the matter is you actually do. These slides came down from the Keller Williams International website. I've modified those a little bit to add my own commentary. So if you want my version of the slides, then I will send that along with the calculators and all those things that you get. And Nancy is right. It's even less when you grow a team. The profit is even less. I know a lot of teams right now that are netting not 30 or 40, 20, 25. But again, we get back into the bigger the enterprise that you're running, the less profitable it is per unit, but the more units you do. It's the McDonald's model, right? And that's just the nature of how the beast runs. So here's what it looks like in the MREA. 30% goes to your operating expenses, 30% to the cost of sales, 40% profit for the solo agent. Ron pointed it out. It's 15% operating expenses, 30% cost of sales, which means you get to net 55%. The reward for your time invested is more dollars kept, but that's the trade-off, right? These are the models. I have people jumping into the Zoom room here, so I'm going to try to keep track of that. And so as we go through the steps here, what we have to do is reverse engineer how much gross dollars at the top of the funnel do I need to generate so that after I pay my 30% operating expenses, after I pay my 30% cost of sale, I still net what I need to net to make the money that I want. And so I ask people all the time when we start to do business planning, how much does it cost to fund the life the way that you want it to be? That's your profit number that your business needs to generate. And then we do the math backwards. The path is in the math. We simply do the math back and say, okay, if, Marianne's coming back in, if I need to net $1 million and that represents 40% profit, 40% of what? It would be 40% of 2.5 million. And the calculations just tell us that. I take my GCI, and here's what I want you to do. Take out your phones. We're going to do a little bit of math together. Not a lot, but take out your phones, open up your calculator, and do not open up your phone. I have been guilty at times of trying to do math equations on my telephone and dialing a number, and suddenly I hear, hello, hello, and I'm like, oh, that's not my calculator. Take $1 million and divide it by 0.4, which is 40%, and you should get 2.5 million. It's simply telling us in order to net $1 million, I need to generate 2.5. And out of that 2.5, I have a budget of 750,000 or 30% of that number to be my operating expenses. For a solo agent, it would be 15% of that number or half. And then the remaining 30% is my cost of sale. It gives us some guidelines, some mile markers. This is how we start to measure, are we on track? Am I staying within these lanes, right? This is the scoreboard. Now, another thing that we do is when you look at the screen here, we determine, and I'm gonna rework these calculations with numbers that don't yield $1 million so that they're a little bit more relatable to some of us. Would anybody prefer that I do that in a few minutes? Okay, thank you. I will. That said, I don't want you to dream small. If people aren't laughing at your dreams, you're not dreaming big enough. That's really the truth. In my world, it is. But what we have to figure out is, okay, if I need to generate 2.5 million to net $1 million, how many transactions is that going to be? Well, that's a function of what's your average commission. And so what we have to do is we have to have some sort of benchmark that says, and my average sale, this is what the gross commission income is. Does anybody know what their average gross commission income is? Lucy does. Of course, Coach Lucy does.
So, I mean, I know what my numbers are. I know that my percentage of commission is 2.25.
And one of the things that we're seeing, guys, right now is that there's a lot of pressure on commission. Do you feel that? Because I'm seeing a trend. The co-brokes that I'm seeing in certain markets, especially here in Essex County, are drifting downwards. I think where I came from 2 years ago up in Bergen County, it hit that market earlier than it did here, where you start to see 2.5% is not the norm anymore being co-broked. It's drifting downward. And I think that's a function of a lot of different things, which we'll talk about another different day. I don't think it's going to stay there. I do think it will start to creep back up because as the market gets harder, which the market's getting harder, as the economy gets harder, as we have to be better, people are willing to pay for guidance in uncertain times. The challenge with the past 10 years, to be fair, guys, is it's been really easy. If you could get the listing, it didn't take much skill to sell it. It just didn't. I don't mean to knock anybody or anything, but that's just the way it was. There's so much demand. If you could get the listing, getting the listing was the game. Selling the listing was easy. When the economy changes and things change, selling the listing becomes more complicated and people will pay for expert level guidance if you can become the Sherpa that gets them safely to the mountaintop. Right. And I do think that commission will start to creep back up again, despite all the technology pressures and all those other things. That said, what we have to figure out is what is our average commission amount? I just like to think simple base 10 numbers. If a $400,000 sale at 2.5% was $10,000, then it's $10,000 at closing. And that may not be the right price point for you. And that may not be the right co-broke for you, but we do need a placeholder. And in the MREA book, the placeholder that they used was $7,150 average per unit. And so what they did was they said, if I need to get 2.5 million and each closing generates 7,150, I got to have 350 closings. And I see some of you in the room going, whoa. And you know what? That's what it takes to net $1 million. Now, the good news for you guys is you're at a higher price point. So your price point, your commissions are bigger. It's not as big a number for you. The next thing we have to look at in this model, we're going to do this exercise together, is to make some decisions about how does our business get divided. Some of our gross commission dollars is going to come from listings sold, and some of them is going to come from buyers sold. And to more degree than a lot of agents like to believe, they're more in control of that than they like to think. What the MREA model tells us, though, is that buyers are the byproduct of listings. I sometimes ask in Ignite, who's more important, the buyer or the seller? Remember that goofy question I asked a few weeks back? Who's more important in the transaction, the buyer or the seller? And some people say the seller's more important and here's why, and the buyer's more important and here's why. And the truth is, it's a trick question. We need both in any market economy, but the bottom line is someone has to be willing to spend money or there is no market. It doesn't matter what you have. If no one is willing to spend money for it, it's meaningless. And with that mindset, then people say, then why are you having me focus so much on sellers? Here's why. We're back to leverage. It's marketing of the listings that bring those people with their wallets to us. If I control the thing that you want to spend your money on, you're going to come and find me. If I don't control the thing that you want to spend your money on, I have to go and find you. And that's more expensive and more time consuming and less efficient. Just imagine that you owned Kellogg's and you wanted to sell your cornflakes. You have to control the distribution point. and make people come to the store to get them. Otherwise, you have to pay a whole fleet of Kellogg's door-to-door cornflake salesmen. And that's not an efficient way to run a business. So we always focus on the 3 L's: leads, listings, and leverage. We always focus on generating listings because the listings bring us the buyers. And what we learn is that in a normalized market, what we find is that for every listing that we take, the marketing that we do, typically the open houses and the marketing pieces and the signs in the ground and all those things, bring enough buyers through our pipeline that typically there's a 1-for-1 correlation. For every listing that I successfully take, I get enough buyer leads that I can typically close 1. That's what the model looks like. And so we look at this and we say, if we're dividing up the 350 units, half of those units will be seller side units. And all the things that I do to generate listings, sell those listings, market those listings, or generate the buyers to me, and I should be able to close half of the buyers based on the marketing of those listings. Do we understand the model? But this is the model. This is the pro forma. This is what we're aiming for. It don't always work that way. Because here's what happens. Sometimes our model goes sideways. I like to think of this 50-50 split as vital signs. Come out of healthcare, worked in healthcare for a long time. And here's what I learned about vital signs. There's certain vital signs that doctors and nurses and EMTs know that they can use, that they can measure to determine how healthy are people. If I was to fall down on the floor right now and just go completely stone cold, and one of you was kind enough to call the Montclair ambulance squad to come, the first thing that they would do is start to check certain vital signs. And why? What are they looking for? Number 1, are you alive? We got the wrong rig out here. You need a hearse, dude, right now. But look, the blood pressure, because here's the thing: blood pressure, heart rate, body temperature. We know what it looks like when it's healthy. How you deviate from that gives us feedback on what's going wrong. If your blood pressure is high, there's very different things that they're going to do than if your blood pressure is low. If your body temperature is high, they're going to do very different things than if your body temperature is low. How you deviate from what we expect gives us feedback on how healthy or unhealthy the patient is. And when a business is running healthy, it looks kind of sort of like this, 50-50-ish. If I was going to tweak it, I'd lean a little heavier on the listing side. I'd go 60-40. That's where I coach people to. 60-40, here's why: because what we know is when you control the inventory, you control the market. When you control the inventory, the buyers are coming and looking for you because you've got what they want. I control the inventory. You're seeing my signs out there. You're seeing my marketing out there. I'm far more visible. It's better for my brand reputation, brand recognition, for you to see me out there that way. When I work exclusively with buyers, I'm kind of invisible. Would you agree? Mm-hmm. Right? So I would say sort of 60-40. But here's the thing: you can get even more sideways, and it's not always a good thing. I have people that say, well, if a little is good, maybe a lot is better. Instead of going 60-40 listings to buyer sides, why don't I go 80-20? Why don't I go 90-10? What's the downside in that?
I think it's kind of like investing where you need to diversify.
Investing, Carissa says, you need to diversify your investment portfolio a little bit. There's some of that, but here, let's go back to the concept. If my listings become the magnet that attract buyers to me, and 90% of my business is coming from listings closed, and it's not generating the correlating buyers close, am I leaving opportunity on the table?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
For sure. And so some people say that's a choice I'm willing to make because I don't really love driving buyers around. I'm tired of picking Cheerios out of the car seat. Whatever it is, right? You can make that as a business choice. I would say that's a foolish choice. I would rather have leverage and have a buyer's agent run those buyers if I don't want to do that, so I can claim that revenue. I would minimum at least refer that out to generate referral revenue. I don't want to leave it on the table. But there's a lot of reasons why sometimes the things go askew. And sometimes you're looking at your actual numbers And you, despite the fact that you're aiming for 50-50, you're starting to become kind of 80-20 or 20-80. Let me give you some examples. We have just started to come into a slowdown out of one of the most ridiculously insane, hot, crazy markets of our lifetime. I hope you never see a market like this again. This is the worst market that we could have ever had as a country, as an industry. It is brutally sad. Lucy's nodding her head. You're 30 years in the business, right? Nancy, we've got some veterans in the room. This is awful. And here's what happens. Nancy's saying, ha, ha, ha. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. What happens is this, you get a listing, and that listing is supposed to, through our marketing, bring buyers to us. You get that listing on Tuesday, you put it on the MLS on Tuesday night, and you've got 45 offers by 8 a.m. in the morning. And you didn't have a chance to market that. And so look, if the biggest problem that you have in your business is that all your listings are selling in 24 hours at 150% of their asking price, yay for you. That's a world-class problem, but it's a problem. It is a problem because the model says that half of our income has to come from the buyers. And if I'm not getting a chance to meet the buyers, I've got a problem. Then I need to do more listings, and that's harder, right? So what we have to figure out is this is the pro forma 50-50. I would say closer to 60-40 is what I would aim for. But then what we do is we really start to look and say, how is it really showing up? We're going to track our numbers in actual against this pro forma to say what's really happening. I'm taking my blood pressure. I know what it should be. This is what it is. What does that tell us? If I'm starting to deviate, how come? What should I do? That's the beauty of this economic model. It teaches us what do we do with our lead generation model? How do we think about perhaps increasing our skills? How do we change our conversion rates, right? Okay, that said, I'm going to walk through this really quickly. Don't worry about this sheet. We're going to get to it in the spreadsheet in a second. What we do is we look at the seller side here and we say, okay, if I need 350 total units, 50% of those would be 175. That's what I need in terms of total sellers closed. But the problem is that not every one of our listings closes, right? Now, it's hard to believe that in the last market that we've been in, where everything, as awful as it is, sells. I live around the corner from the Watcher House. Even the Watcher House sold. It is absolutely amazing. It's crazy. Did you just see that movie? I can tell you the real story later. See me afterwards, I'll tell you the real story. But here's the deal. I'm not the Watcher. Barb's like, are you the Watcher? The Watcher House is a story in Westfield, New Jersey about this family that bought this house and then started getting these really creepy letters from somebody who claimed to be the Watcher. And they were watching the house and it was their time to watch the house. And the father watched it years before. And we're so glad that you brought young blood into the house. And it was freaking them out. And they never really even moved in, despite all the craziness you saw on Netflix. The point of the matter is, even in the market that even that house sold. Because everything sold. The truth is everything won't sell all the time. There's always reasons why things don't sell and things fall through. And we're beginning to see now, we're beginning to see fall throughs again. Anybody experienced one of those recently? There was a study that just came out last week by Redfin that showed nationally, I believe the number is 18% in the country of every deal that went under contract in the last quarter, the buyers backed out. 18%. That's buyer's remorse. That's what happens in the heat of battle, in the emotion of trying to buy a house. I'm super excited. I got the house. And then they look at their monthly payment and go, wait, what? What have I done? Oh my God, I can't really do this. And they back out. The thing we've got to figure out is what's the true percentage of properties that I list that actually close? And what the MREA has done in the MREA book is they've looked at the closings of thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of transactions. And the benchmark that they used was 70% typically close. For you in the last couple of years, it was way higher than that. It will not stay that high going forward. And so 70% of the listings that I take close, in order to get 175 closed, I got to close 250. We take 175, we divide it by 70%, and that tells us I need to take 250 so that 175 actually close. Are we all good with the math so far? Okay. And don't worry about the calculations. I built a spreadsheet for you. It'll do the math for you. Here's the thing. Now we have to figure out if I need to take 250 listings a year, and we'll bring these down to more normalized numbers in a minute. How many listing appointments do I need to go on? Because the truth of the matter is, do we get every listing appointment that we go on? The answer is no. And why don't we get every listing appointment? Give me some thoughts. Oh, there's an answer in chat. Let's see. In chat, what? Oh, that was just Nancy going, haha. What are the reasons why we don't get every listing appointment that we go on? Maybe they're crazy and their price is wrong and we walk away from it. That could happen. Why else? Is it possibly maybe we didn't qualify them really well enough? Maybe we didn't have enough skill. Maybe our listing consultation appointment isn't really polished enough to be able to guide them through the decision-making process so that they felt the confidence in us to do what it really took. Maybe they were always going to list with their mother, who happened to be a real estate agent, but they were just baiting you to see if you would give them a price, or maybe take a look at your marketing plan to see if they could get some ideas. But they knew going in, I got to give this one to mama, or I ain't never going to be allowed to go back to Thanksgiving dinner again, right? You're never going to get all of those. Maybe we're defining a listing appointment incorrectly. Oh, I love you, Nancy, for saying that. Unmute if you would be so kind and tell us a little bit about what you mean by that.
So, can you guys see me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Apologies, I'm eating lunch. So one of the things that, so I have a MAPS coach, and one of the things that my MAPS coach really started to hone in on with me is that she was kind of like, it's so weird. Like, it feels like your quote unquote successful listing conversion, appointment conversion seems a little bit low, which is weird because I have a really good presentation. And what was really interesting is she was kind of like, let's go back and look at each of these each of these appointments that you went on and tell me about it. And we started to realize that, a lot of people were just fishing, or they were like, well, we're thinking about next spring. It was the problem of qualification. I wasn't qualifying them properly. Or, what I really should just do is not consider that a listing presentation. If someone calls me in November and they're thinking they want to list in May, that's not really a listing presentation.
You're exactly right. To me, as a coach, my definition of listing presentation is if they are prepared to put their home on the market tonight, it's a listing presentation.
Yep.
If they're not, it's an appointment, it's a consultative appointment, and one that I probably need to go on, but it's not a listing presentation. And keep in mind, I'm going to go back to screen in a second here. I'm going to try to figure out how to reshare the screen. Hold on for a minute. We were playing with the screen here in the room.
Hey, Hal, can I say one thing?
Please go ahead.
While
Well,
you say that?
Yep.
So one of the things that I discovered is that you go on these listing consultations and they keep you there for hours because they want to know every single thing they want to do. You advise them to do to the house in order for them to put it on 6 months from now.
Yeah. And
I
look,
don't do that anymore.
That's, and look, and that's where we talk about leverage, right? If that's a consumer need, is there a different, more leveraged way that I can do that without giving up my time? Can I provide that information in pre-recorded videos? Can I provide that information in FAQs? Or is it something that you only get access to that information once you've actually made more of a commitment to work with me? All those are business decisions that you get to make, right? In terms of how you give up your time, right? Your time is your most precious commodity, guys. You've got to protect your time. It's the only thing that you're not getting any more of. The measure of a great life is are you in control of how you get to spend your time, right? And so what we think about is if I need 250 listing appointments, legitimate, God's honest listing appointments, not pre-qualification appointments, not appointments where I get to go out and start to answer 2 years worth of questions. It's a fine balance to not overshare on those fishing appointments, Marianne. You're absolutely right. Nancy says it's really hard to get them to sign for 6 months. You're right. All these things are hard. They're hard. I don't remember who the coach was. I think it was Jim Dwyer. He used to say, don't wish things were easier. Wish you were better. And I was really offended when I heard that.
How dare you? I'm pretty damn good, but I'm not good enough. Don't wish it was easier, just wish you were better. Keep sharpening the saw. If you had $1 to invest, invest in yourself, right? Get better. Here's the deal. Here's the deal. I don't get every listing that I go on. How many do I get? I've got to track that. One of the hardest things as a coach is to find a way to get people to track their dang numbers. I teach Ignite. I've been teaching Ignite. I probably taught Ignite 60 times in my career. And trying to get people to record their numbers is like asking them to have root canal. They tell me at the very beginning, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to commit to doing it. And they do it for a minute and then they stop doing it because it's hard. And it's not fun. And it's not the sexy part of this industry. You don't get to watch HGTV and have the agents tracking their numbers. That's not what they're showing. They're showing all the fun stuff, right? And then magically, like 30 minutes after they close on a house, they move in and they have this client party and all these different things. That's TV. That's not real life. We got to track our numbers. And we've got to define, is this a legit listing appointment or is it not? We've got to be clear on what's our strike zone. Jeb Blunt, who is one of the greatest sales trainer coaches in the world of all time across any industry, in his book, Fanatical Prospecting, he gives an analogy of his son who was playing in a baseball league, a little league game. And it was their big championship game. And it's the bottom of the 9th inning and the heat was on and things were tight. And the coach just said to the guy going up to the plate, don't swing at anything bad. How much time do we waste swinging at stuff that's not in the strike zone because we haven't defined the strike zone? Because for us, it's been so hard to get anybody to come and talk to us that here's the strike zone. You got a pulse? I'm talking to you. That's what happens. And it's a lead generation issue. I said the economic model ties into all these different models. The way we avoid doing that is having more better leads to talk to, right? That said, what is our conversion rate? When I get there, how many times do I actually score the deal? The MRE model says 3 out of 4 times you get it. And I can tell you there's lots and lots of agents, some in this room who are higher than that. What are the things that you think have the most impact in your ability to convert a listing at the listing table of all the things that could influence that decision-making? And assume that these are qualified leads now, that they're really legitimate listing appointments. What do you think has the most impact? Is it your scripts? Is it your listing presentation? What do you think has the most impact in your ability to walk away with a closed signed listing agreement? Asking for the business. That's probably high on the list. You'd be stunned how many times people go through their whole listing presentation and say, well, why don't you take some time to think about this? Please don't do that, right? It's not that for me. So you're in the right ballpark though.
It's the connection.
Talk to me.
It's the connection you have with the person. So it's having similarities, it's thinking the same, it's being able to just talk to each other.
Yeah, people buy people before product and service. I heard that from my mentor early in real estate, right? But here's what it comes down to. For me, it's where was the source of this opportunity? When I have a listing presentation that was teed up as a referral from a trusted friend who said, you know what? You want to list your house? You got to talk to Diane. She's the very best that there is. She goes in there. You know what can happen? She could go in there. She could trip on the stairs. She could go in there. She could flub her listing presentation. She could even throw up on the table if she had to. I don't know what needs to happen. But the truth of the matter is, because she had the social proof of a friend who said she's the very best, it's really hard to not get that, as opposed to the one that you paid for the Zillow lead. You chased them around for 600 years. You finally got them to relent and said, okay, I'll meet with you. The odds of converting that at that table is really, really low compared to the personal referral. Do you see why we keep pushing you into your database? Your database will convert better. Those leads will always be better. And if you can drive up this conversion, you don't have to get to the table as many times. And I'm lazy. I don't like to work that hard because you know, Shannon talked about, what are you aiming for? What do you want your life to be? You don't want to be out there hustling all the time. Don't wish it was easier. Wish you were better. Practice, get better, and work in your database. So we go through this and we figure out how many appointments Qualified appointments, and that's the gold standard of everything that we do in lead generation, is can it yield a qualified appointment? An appointment where a decision is being made tonight. That's the gold standard. And in this $1 million model, that's 333 of those bad boys a year, which translates into 28 a month and 7 a week. And you look at that and you say, well, that's a lot of work. Well, truth be told, that's not just you. A millionaire real estate business is typically running a team. That's your team's work. And by the way, we translated onto the other side and said, this is only half of the business. The other half is going to be brought to us through the buyers that this generates. And we look at those conversions. And if I need 50% of my business from buyer side, that's the same 175. What percentage of my buyers that are working exclusively with me actually close? And the MREA benchmark was 70%. And I'm going to tell you, if you've been working with buyers in the past couple of years, you know 70% is crap because it's been so hard. And so that's not real. This is the pro forma. Your real number has been very different in the last year. But what is your real number? And how can you keep people motivated to stay in the game? And how can you become better as an influencer so that you can get them to do what they need to do so that they can win some of these opportunities and not be 4th place, 9th place, 22nd place? We're seeing less of that going forward as the market starts to get normalized again. But our ability to convert is going to be driven in large part on our ability to guide people into making decisions and taking the right action. And I know that sometimes people have to lose one before they get that taste of defeat. I know that that's true sometimes. But I also know that it's our job to try to protect them from that. I don't want you to lose your dream house. My job as a parent is to protect my child. I can watch my daughter walking out into Route 22 at the age of 4 years old and say, you know, sometimes you just got to get run over by a truck to realize that the highway is a dangerous place. No parent would do that, I hope. And yet as a real estate agent, we have to figure out, what do we have to do? How do we have to connect and build a relationship so that people trust us to do what really needs to be done, as long as it's in their capacity to do it, right? What is our conversion rate? 70% is what the benchmark is. Your numbers may vary, but if it's 70%, we know that we've got to get 250 buyers to commit to us. And what is our conversion rate at that meeting? When I meet with a buyer, do they commit to work with me or don't they? The conversion rate on that is 70% according to the pro forma. What are your numbers? The only way you know is you have to track. Thank you. You have to track. You have to keep track of, I went on this appointment. Did I get it? Did I not get it? Okay. All of that gives us a guideline in terms of how many appointments does my lead generation activity have to create. I'm working hard. I'm stepping on these levers. Is the needle moving? I'm doing all these activities. Am I getting appointments? If I'm not getting appointments, how come? Is it a skill issue? Is it a volume issue? Is it a activity issue? Maybe I'm just doing the wrong things, right? The economic model helps us think through all that. So I want to take a minute, and I'm keeping an eye on the time. We will be done in about probably 15 or 20 minutes. We won't go to 1 o'clock, I promise you. Promise you. But I just want to walk through the calculator, and we've gone through the math of how these numbers relate. And I'm going to send you the calculator, and I'm going to ask you to save a copy of it, because when you start messing with it, you'll probably screw it up. So save a rescue copy and then start to play with it. Let me stop this screen share and give me a second to get this calculator on screen and start a screen share again. Almost hit leave the room. That would have been a mistake, wouldn't it? Can you guys see my calculator on the screen? Hopefully. So this is what I'm going to email you. This is what I'm going to send to you. And the thing that you have to do is you have to take that exercise. You get to go back and think about the first hour that we spent with Shannon. Isn't Shannon amazing? I got to tell you something. She's not here in the room. I get recruiting calls a lot. I will never not work with Shannon. I just won't, because your life is a function of the people that you choose to surround yourself with, and she's pretty damn amazing.
Can you say that? What you'll never what?
Not work with Shannon until she fires me. Well, that could happen. But here's the point. You go back to that exercise and pick up on her passion and start to dream a little bit and say, what do I really want with the time that I've got? And what does it cost to make that legitimately real? And just be willing to stay in curiosity and not get so caught up into all of those years of programming that told you all the reasons why you're not smart enough or tall enough or thin enough or whatever that crap is. Just put that on the shelf for a minute and just start to say, what would it look like if it was really real? And how much money would it take to make that happen? And we plug those numbers in, and there's a thing here in chat that says, what does it say in chat? It says the Shannon effect. Absolutely. That's exactly right, the Shannon effect. So what we need to do is we need to determine what is our net profit number pre-tax. And if you want to put a hedge in that, because don't forget to pay the tax, man. You can't spend money on funding your life. It has to go to the IRS. Please learn how to understand how to invest in such ways that you can get some tax guide, some tax help. You know, I've really, in the last number of years, really come around a little bit in how I think about the tax code. Number one, I don't like paying tax. Anybody love paying tax? Quick show of hands. How many people love it? Not that many. But here's the deal. The IRS does give you some ideas of what are things that they would rather you do so that government doesn't have to do it themselves. Government is not, and this is not political, please, it's not political. Government's not really efficient at getting stuff done. I come out of healthcare and I don't want my government running my healthcare. I just don't. They can't even run the DMV well. It's not to say that there's certain things that can't be done better in a more universalized way, but from an efficiency standpoint, the private sector is always more nimble and more capable of doing a lot of things than a bureaucratic system can do. That's just my opinion. But the tax code is written to say, these are the things that we would rather the private sector do. And creating jobs is one of those things, tax incentives for job creation. Creating housing is one of those things. That's why you get such tax incentives when you purchase and invest in real estate, right? Anyway, that said, we have to make sure that we're putting money aside because we do have to allocate whatever we truly do owe. And I am not saying that we should duck and be a tax dodge. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is get into a relationship with the government and do the things that the government would rather have you do and get the tax rewards for that if you so choose to do that. If not, pay your fair share. And I know a lot of agents who get into trouble with the IRS because here's what happens. You get money and you're like, I got money, but you don't put it aside for the things that you need to put it aside for. Session number 17 of Ignite, the second to last class, we talk about sort of the financial model and all the different accounts that you should probably have. And you should probably have a separate bank account for putting your money that you have to pay the IRS so that you don't see it, so that you don't spend it, right? We'll get into all those strategies another day. But the bottom line is, how much net money do I want to have? And assume that I have to pay taxes of whatever my tax burden is going to look like. And we don't put that in here, especially because with real estate investing and so many other things, I have no real way of knowing what to benchmark for you. I just don't. You have a better sense of that, so plan accordingly, right? But let's just plug in a number and say, if I wanted to fund my life with $100,000, which is a common number that I get. I've been coaching for a long time. I ask agents all the time, how much money do you want to make in real estate, in your real estate business? Some of you have heard this story before. Do you know what the most common number is that I get? How much money do you want to make in real estate? I get this answer all the time. I see 100K and Nancy said, nope, that's not it. It's close. That's the second most common number. Here's the most common number. How much money do you want to make? I want to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's great. You can make a lot of money. I know people who've made a lot of money. The problem with a lot of money is it's not precise enough for me to build a plan to. I don't know what that is for you. It's like going to your car and saying, I want to go somewhere sunny, and you type in Waze, take me somewhere sunny. Waze is like, I don't know where that is. But if you say, take me to San Diego, California, oh, I know where that is. Here's where it is. Here's the route. And then let's get on the road. And what I love about these GPSs is that when you get lost and you go off track, what does it say?
Rerouting.
Recalculating. Here's what it doesn't say. It doesn't say, God, you're an idiot. For the last 2 miles, I have been saying, prepare to exit right, and you blew the turn. Like, do you even listen to your wife? Like, if I was a programmer for some of these companies, I would be putting some of that stuff in there. That'd be really funny, wouldn't it? But the point of the matter is, it doesn't judge us. It just simply says, look, here's where you said you wanted to go. You're starting to go this way. If you really want to go there, you've got to recalculate. There's a new route. That's what the economic model allows us to do, right? But the number that I get after I point people down and say, look, give me something precise, the number that I get is 100,000. More often than not, there's something about a 6-figure number that I think is attractive. And that's not really the right number for 80% of the population, although that's what I hear. What is your real number? But let's assume it's 100,000. The calculator, the way that I've built it, you see this box that says your unique data inputs. These are the things that you need to enter. And what does that include? It includes the net income you're looking to generate. It includes your average commission. And it includes, how do you want your business to divide? What percentage of it do you truly want listing side? What percentage of it do you truly want buyer side? We're creating the pro forma. We're creating the template that we're aiming for. I would coach you to 60-40, 60% of your revenue from listing side, 40% buyer side. That's where I feel the real sweet spot is. Coach Lucy, where would you go on that?
I would say at least 60-40. I personally prefer to do 70-30.
Mm-hmm. And here's the thing, the key word in that sentence is I prefer. She made a conscious business decision based on her experience and how she wants to invest her time and all those things. I don't have a problem with people going 80-20, 90-10. That's not healthy from a vital standpoint, but if you choose that by design, and that's what you want, that's fine, right? That said, I think that sort of 60 to 70 range is really kind of the sweet spot, right? So you put in what's that pro forma, I would change that to be 60% listings and 40% buyers is how I would do it, right? God bless you, Penny. And let's, was that?
Hal, I'm so sorry, but you know, that link that you sent, it's open as a Google page. And for some reason, I cannot, even if I share.
Yeah, you know what, don't worry about it. Follow along right now and I'll resend it at the end.
Yeah, but I can edit this file.
Yeah, don't worry about it right now. The one that you have access to right now seems like it's a little wonky through the Zoom download. But don't worry about that. I will resend you this file. You will get it by the end of the day. And for those of you in Zoom land, I will probably be able to download a Zoom report. If you've signed in to Zoom, I'll know who you are and get it to you. If you're in the room here, please sign up here so that I can get it to you. But here's the thing, 60-40 is how we're aiming to have our business split. I'm going to assume, what's a healthy average commission in this market area? Can we assume $500,000 as an average sale price for Essex County? Does that sound fairish? Yeah. Okay. And, you know, Lucy, you're finding that 2.25 is really more common than 2.5. I always err on the side of being more conservative and building a plan to a more conservative goal and being pleasantly surprised when things work out better. So let's just assume that the average sale price is 500,000 and we're getting 2.25. That tells us that the average commission is 11,250. So I'm going to put that in the box here. And I still am trying to net $1 million here, aren't I? That's not really what I want. Let's just say I said I wanted 100,000. So I'm going to change this to 100,000. And look at how these numbers all change. Now, let's look at this. 100,000 is what I want to net. I need to generate 250 then. With an average commission of 11,250, I need to close 22 units. Out of those, if 60% of those are listings, that would be 13 of the 22. 40% are buyers, that would be 9 of the 22. Following the math here? Okay. Now, this is where I have to put in my legitimate conversion rates. Now, keep in mind, there's 2 versions of this calculator. What we're establishing right now is what are we aiming for? This is the pro forma. This is what I want. I think we should want conversion rates that are pretty consistently similar with the MRA models. But I think we do a separate version to see where are we really. I'm going to build a pro forma that says 70% of my listings actually sell. In the last 2 years, you're really tracking closer to 95 or 100%. Most of your listings sold in the last couple of years. They just didn't expire and they didn't fall through. You'll start to see that change, but you built the pro forma, I think, to these models. And then what you do is in your second version, you begin to track what is really happening. What am I, in my conversion on my listing appointments, I'm aiming for 75%, which means in order to get my 13 listings sold, I've got to go, I need 19. That would be 70% of the 19 actually sell, gets me my 13, right? If my conversion rate is 75%, then I have to get at the listing table 25 times. And if I get better than that, if I really work and I work with my skills and I practice and I get coached and all that stuff, and my conversion rate goes to 85%, then the number of listing appointments I need just dropped by 3. If I can get to 90%, then the number of listing appointments just dropped again. All of this calculator does is brings us right back to the most important numbers on here, which are right down here on the bottom. How many qualified appointments do I need to go on every month? And how many qualified appointments do I need to be on every week? And everything that I do in my lead generation, in the things that I do are measured against, am I on track for 2 appointments a month, half an appointment a week? And let's round up to half an appointment a week. I don't really want you to go on a half an appointment. Like you're halfway through and you're like, oh, this is stupid. I don't want to do this anymore. And you just don't walk out, right? Don't go on a half an appointment. But it really means a couple times a month, you got to be at the table. And are you on track for that? And if not, what do you need to do different? Do you need to amp up the volume of the activities that you're doing? Do you need to get better at the activities that you're doing? Do you need to do different activities? What do we need to do? And by the way, that's why we have coaches to help guide you in that, right, Coach Lucy?
Indeed.
Right?
It's really key.
It's key. I pay 2 coaches because I'm not that smart. 1 coach isn't good enough. The truth of the matter is, if we're on track to hitting these numbers, we should be getting where we want to be. The economic model, here's where we wrap it up. The economic model gives us the blueprint. It doesn't tell us what to do. It just tells us when we do what we're doing, how do we evaluate whether we're on track or off track? Are we winning? Are we losing? When we keep score, we play differently. We do. And when you keep score, you will play differently. And when you have somebody else be the scorekeeper, you will play differently still. You will. Accountability is really, really important. And accountability is a word that we all hate. I know I do. Anybody love the word accountability? There are some people out there who do. I know some people in chat who do. But here's the thing. Here's the thing with accountability. What we hear in accountability is punishment. What we hear is my father saying to me, I'm going to hold you accountable, young man, because I would screw up and he would make me pay the piper. That's the way we feel accountability is. And I get that. But what accountability truly is somebody who cares enough about the things that you say are important to you, that they're going to do what it takes to help you get there. Accountability is truly an act of compassion of people who want you to succeed and aren't going to let you take the easy way out. And we need accountability relationships in our lives. Otherwise, all of this, if you truly believe you're going to be able to hold yourself accountable, you're kidding yourself. You just are. And I love you, but you're kidding yourself. Who's going to be your accountability partner? You want to really up the game? Make it a family member. You know, I shared a story in Ignite not too long ago about a friend of mine who had his 2 sons as his accountability partners. He had some business goals and things that he wanted to achieve. And he told them, look, if daddy hits his goals at work, I'm going to take you guys to Disney. And if I don't hit my goals at work, no Disney for you guys. His kids were like 7 or 8 or whatever it was. You know what would happen when he got home from work every single day? Hey, daddy, how's it going at work? You on track, daddy? Anything we can do for you, daddy? We really want to go to Disney World, daddy. You know, that's what happens. I'll tell you another example of accountability at a super high level that I had an agent that I coached up at Woodcliff Lake years ago. And this is frankly one of the most insane, it's not the right word, but the most dramatic examples of accountability I've come across. Had the opportunity to coach a woman who is an amazing woman, who she really had some pretty big goals and some big whys, and she was really leaning in. And she looked at the scoreboard and she said, it's getting late in the game. I've got 2 daughters that I want to send to college, and I don't have a lot of money put aside for them, and that's getting closer. You play differently later in the game, which is why the scoreboard is important. And she said to me, here's what I know. This is how much money it's going to take to create the things that I'm absolutely burn the bridges committed to doing. Failure is not an option, right? And so this is what I want. And she says, here's how I want you to hold me accountable as my coach. And she told me the story of growing up in the South. And she grew up, and I don't remember Alabama, Mississippi, but she grew up in a southern state, and she was an African-American woman. And she talked about what it was like for her and some of the cultural things that went on in her world. And she talked about family members of hers. Now, just stick with me here, guys, because it's unpleasant to talk about, but she did talk about family members who were legitimately lynched and what impact that created in her world and how committed she became to create a better life for herself and for her daughters and everyone else. And look, I don't want to get into all of the stuff that we need to do a better job of as a country, as a nation, as a people. Thank God for our DEI committee. I love all of you for the things that we're doing in this organization to try to be better. But here's what she said to me as a coach. She says, I need to hit these benchmarks. I know what my numbers are. I know what I need to do to be on track. I can't control the outcomes. I can only control the inputs. There's lead measures and lag measures, right? We talk about that in business. There's things that I can control. And if I do the things that I can control, I expect I should have an outcome. I can't guarantee that outcome. The only thing I can control is what do I do? And so I need to go on this number of appointments and have this number of contacts every single week. And she says, every Friday, I'm going to call you up, or we're going to talk at 4 o'clock. And here's how I want you to hold me accountable. She took a checkbook out and she wrote a check in the amount of $1,000. And she made it payable to a New York State chapter of the Ku Klux Klan. And she said, any Friday at 4 o'clock that I have not hit my numbers, I want you to mail that check and I will give you another one. And I'm like, wait, what? I'm at a coach and I'm like saying to people, I'm trying to cajole and nudge and try to get people to just put their numbers in the 10-4 calculator. And here's this woman saying, hold me at this high level. And this is how committed I am. And I'm like, game on, let's do this. And then I went to my coach and one of my coaching meetings later, and my coach said, would you really mail that check? And I thought about that for a while because I'm a softie, and I'm like, you know what? The worst kind of coach you could ever have in the world is a coach who's going to buy into your bullshit, who's going to be willing to say to you, yeah, I know this was your goal, and it was a busy week, and I know you got tired, and your dog threw up, and all these things happened, and they're going to let you off the hook. And I said to her, if she believes that I'm going to let her skate, she's not going to play. So yeah, I'm going to mail that check. And we went for a year. And I never mailed that check. And her daughter is in Emory University right now in pre-med. And that will stick with me forever. And at the end of our coaching term, I had the pleasure of giving her a check back. And I said, you should frame this thing. Just frame it and put it up on the wall. But we need to have accountability, because without someone who cares enough to hold us to our word, to our dreams, to our visions, without that whole exercise that we did in the very beginning, that whole wonderful feel-good exercise was just a game. And I don't want that for you. I don't. What I want, and the reason why I'm here and the reason why we're all here, is because we really believe Keller Williams has a business mission statement that doesn't say we want to sell the most damn houses. That is not who we are. Our 5-point mission statement is these 5 things. Number 1, to help agents create careers worth having, businesses worth owning, so they can fund a life that's worth living, create experiences worth sharing, and ultimately a legacy that is worth leaving. That is what we're here for. And it's getting challenging out there because the market is changing. And kudos to you guys for being in this room and committing to do the work and putting in the reps. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to finish up here. I will send you this calculator. I want you to go home and have that same conversation about your dreams for your future with the other people in the world who have a say in that, who are going to have a vested interest in that outcome, because you're going to need them to play with you. You know, one of the things that's going to happen is when you change who you are, other people, they got to change with you, right? And, you know, I know that. I said, Shannon said to me, you know, what's your big why? And I talked about one of the things that I need to do is just make sure I surround myself with the people who are playing bigger than me, who are dreaming bigger than me. I'm not suggesting you go home and fire anybody. We can't do that necessarily. Sometimes we do need to do that, right? But the point of the matter is, where we're going to go next in this fourth quarter intensive, we're going to take these numbers. I'm going to ask you to take your calculator, play with these numbers, know your numbers. And when you know your numbers, this is the one. I'll put it on the screen. How many appointments do I need to generate? That is the gold standard. Everything is measured against, am I on track? And in this instance, we need to generate 2 listing appointments a month and 2 buyer side appointments a month. I got to be at the decision-making table 4 times a month. That is my number. And you got to know it, and you got to memorize it. And if you want to go get a tattoo, you can put the tattoo on it, but I don't need to know anything about your tattoos. I really don't. But the point is, if I came up to you and said, what's your number? You should be able to say right now, this is my number. And this is where I am in relationship to it. That's what we've got to be able to develop. And so where we're going next is, starting next week, we take this number and we start to make it into a plan. This is how I'm going to measure if I'm winning or losing. What I need to do next is figure out, what the hell do I actually have to do? Because all of these exercises are great, but they don't tell you what you have to do. And that's where we get into something that we call the GPS and the 411. And that's where we get into the right mix of what activities do I need to do at what volume level, at what frequency level, so that I can see if they're generating these numbers. And that's what we're going to do next. And how do we do that? Nancy, I'll get to your question in a second. How we're going to do that is in each individual market center. The Montclair folks can stay here. The Summit folks will join me in Summit. The Westfield folks will go to Westfield, or you can go wherever you want. Maria, Allison, myself, Shannon, we're all going to be hosting these next workshops. Next week's workshop is going to be focused on, now that you know your numbers, let's put together an action plan of what specific mix of activities gets you there. And I don't know exactly if that's going to get you there. You're going to do it. You're going to measure it. You're going to come back and see, am I on track for my appointments? That's the next session. And we're going to generate what's called that GPS. And we'll generate what's called a 411. Everything's an abbreviation in this damn company. I don't know why it is. Everything's an abbreviation. The 411 helps us to start to schedule. What do I need to do this week to be on track for this month's goals? What do I need to get done this month to be on track for this year's goals? That's what we're going to do next week. And then the week after that, we're going to do some calendaring. Because if it's not on your calendar, it doesn't exist. It doesn't. You know, I get to, some of you guys know the name John Maxwell. He's a business coach and a thought leader in the leadership space. And I get to coach in the John Maxwell organization and get to spend some time around him sometimes, which is really cool. And one of the things that John says all the time is you can sort of predict people's success by looking at their calendar. What you have on your calendar is going to dictate what you do, and what you do is going to dictate what you get. And so we will have a calendaring exercise after. Once we know what I'm aiming for, next week is what do I do? The following week is how do I get it onto my calendar? Oh, and by the way, it's not just your business stuff. It's not just your lead generation stuff. The purpose of business is to fund a really amazing life. The first thing that should go on your calendar is what, Thaisa? Family. She was in my class yesterday. It's you fill out your calendar by saying, what is the biggest and most important thing that I need to get done? It's my time with the people that I love. That's what you can't get back. When I was doing hospice work, that's what I heard again and again and again. I didn't hear people say, I wish I spent more time at work. I heard people say, I wish I spent more time with the people that mattered in the time that I had, and not getting so caught up in all this other shit that didn't really amount to much. Get that stuff in your calendar first. Where's your vacation time? Where are those dance recitals that you've got to get to for your grandchild? What are the soccer games that you can't miss? Whatever it is, that goes in your calendar first. And you learn to do your business around the edges of that, right? We're going to help you put together a calendar. And that will include your business activities, your social media posting activities, your health and wellness activities, your personal growth and development activities. Because one of the things that Dave Ramsey says all the time, and I love this, is that people make a mistake sometimes when they look at successful people and they always ask themselves, how can I have what they have? And the question that we should be asking ourselves is, who do I have to become so that I can do the things that they did, so that I can get the things that they have? It's a personal growth change first. Your business grows to the extent that you do. And so in the calendaring will be a personal growth. What skills do I need to develop, right? And how do I develop those? And how am I going to go after it? Where am I going to learn it? When am I going to do that? Who's going to hold me accountable? All that stuff. All of that calendaring is session number 3. And then we'll have another session on helping you to start to engage this database, building out smart plans and email campaigns and all the things through command. We'll have to talk to our tech hosts about helping us with that. And then finally, the last session we're going to start to talk about is presentation skills and holding seminars and getting yourself out there with confidence and all those different things. And in between all of that, on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 o'clock until 11 o'clock, we will be doing live lead generation in person in your office. Come to Summit with me, come to Montclair with Maria, go to Westfield with Allison. On Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 o'clock until 11 o'clock, we will be doing lead generation. And that's where we're going.
I'm sorry, you mentioned something like the next step. So is there going to be another one of these like long?
This is the longest one. This is done. The next ones are just going to be 1 hours. The schedule's coming out. It's going to be on Thursdays from like 1 to, I don't remember what it is. It's in the afternoon. We won't be doing these in the morning. This is the long commitment. We kind of co-opted a big chunk of your day because a lot of you guys signed up for a First Step to Bold. And it was going to be like a 9 to 3 thing. I said, well, as long as they blocked a big chunk, let's get them today for a big chunk. And then as we go forward, the other workshops, and they're workshops. The other workshops are 1 hour, so maybe 90 minutes. They're shorter. But watch for that schedule. You've already seen maybe the schedule in the Daily Dose of the dates, but watch for that. Watch for that. Okay. Now, question. How do you want us to know our historical performance first? Nancy, can you unpack that for me for a sec?
Hey, so I was gonna say, I'm not a big fan of just putting numbers down without knowing what my historical conversion rates are. Do you think that that's a good idea for people?
Yeah.
To do that first?
Yeah. So when you're creating your pro forma, if you know 2 things, one is there's the pro forma, which is what are we aiming at? What do you want that conversion to look like? And then there's the actual. What we would do is if you know what your historic numbers are, we would put those in your actual. And if that's consistent with what you want it to be in the pro forma, that's great. If there's a gap there that you want to take a look at increasing certain conversions, then part of the game is to think about what skills or what do I need to do to change those numbers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just think it's really hard because you see this a lot with agents where they're like, I sold 5 things. Next year, I'm going to do 50. And I'm like, how? Where's the roadmap to get there? And I think you need to know your historical conversion rates to do that.
That's true. And again, for those who have enough reps that can use those numbers, then I would say use those legit historical averages, if you know them, as your actuals. And then you decide what you want your pro forma to be in terms of what you're aiming for. And if it's consistently the same number, that's great. If you want to change those, that's great too. If you don't know, if you don't have enough experience in to know actuals yet, then, just build out to the pro forma. And then as you go, we'll track actual. But you're right. I think sometimes we have a fantasy of historically, I've done 5 transactions a year. Next year, I want to do 75. I'm like, okay, historically, I've been 180 pounds. I want to be 165. How's that going to happen? I don't know. Well, there's a plan and there's a path, right? Go ahead.
I'm kind of on the flip of that. Brand new agent, so I don't have conversion rate numbers.
So use these pro forma numbers that are baked into the calculator. These are, in fact, to be fair, I think if you're newer, and maybe I'll do a 2 version of this calculator. I'll make an adjustment. Because if you're newer, I don't think you're going to convert 70% at the listing table. I think you're probably going to be closer to 50-50. What's going to influence that is where did the lead come from? That's why I want you in your damn database. Because if you convert out of your database, you got a better shot, right? So that said, I will do 2 versions. I will change the conversions based on 20 years of coaching in terms of what I think are more likely for newer agents. I'll give you a new agent calculator and a more experienced agent calculator, and I'll change those conversion ratios if you don't have any of your own. But if you do have your own, use your own in the actual version. Make sense? All right. Any other questions, guys?
Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. All right. If there's no other questions, we're going to park this bus right here. Thank you guys for giving up so much of your life to be with us. We love you and appreciate you and look forward to seeing you throughout this journey. All right, guys, be well.
Thank you.
See ya.
Hey,
You're welcome.
before anybody leaves, if anybody has an opportunity